thank you all for being here. We have a fairly packed agenda, so let's get on with it. Sorry we don't have water jug over there, but there are water fountains out there in that room before the restroom, so I hope you can use those.
So Jason.
Okay, we don't have a flag, so I'm gonna, without objection, skip the Pledge of Allegiance. Anybody has a problem with that? Okay. All right, can I have the roll call, please?
Sure, Brandy.
Yeah.
David Balin.
Yes.
Jason.
Here.
Miran.
Yes.
Becky.
Yes.
David Lasher. Here. Lori.
Yes.
Assad.
Yes.
Gabriel here. Isam.
Yes.
And we have a form.
Thank you. Motion to approve item 5, Gabriel, that's
All
yours.
right, motion to approve the May 8, 2019 PRNC board meeting minutes.
Second.
Any comments or discussion on questions about the minutes? Any public comments on the minutes? No public comments. Call the vote.
All right, Brandy.
Yes.
David Balin.
Yes.
Jason.
Yes.
Miran.
Yes.
Becky.
Yes.
David Lasher.
Yes.
Lori.
Yes.
Assad.
Yes.
Gabriel, yes. Isam.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 6, Jason.
All right, motion to approve the the PRNC MERs for April and May 2019.
Second.
Thank you, David.
David Balin.
Any public comment on the monthly expenditure reports? Any board comment? Any questions? Okay, no board comments. Call the vote.
All right, Brandy.
Yes.
David Balin.
Yes.
Jason.
Yes.
Miran.
Yes.
Becky.
Yeah.
David Lasher.
Yes.
Lori.
Yes.
Assad.
Yes.
Gabriel, yes. Isam.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 7. Anybody, by the way, there are agendas out on the table for everybody. There's also one full packet for the public. If you have any question you need to look into, please look into it and put it back. It's the only copy for the public.
Financial report?
Go ahead.
Okay, so everybody should have a copy of the recent printout from the site. I want to congratulate the board. We've done very well. We can roll over up to 10,000, so I want to make sure we got through that threshold. The commitment for the 6,400, see under the 8,900, see the commitment 6,400. That's for the tree project in Limestone Canyon Park and for Wilbur Tampa Park. Now, you guys authorized up to 10,000, so there could still potentially be more expenditures. The idea is to get the work done and then see if there's anything left over potentially to do. We still have 5,100 available. The only thing, I paid for the food for Teachers Appreciation, that's deducted. There's only a couple items left that haven't come through on the credit card. The $133 for FedEx for our trees, our paper.
Same thing.
The wood trees. Yeah, the wood trees. And the other one is for, what is it, the food, Amici's. I just did $330 for Amici's. So there's a few other small items, but essentially we have this net available. I'm not anticipating, we approved $1,000 for first aid classes and things, but that's not gonna go through. So some of the things, the retreat was under budget, Teachers Appreciation was under budget. Is there anything that is still outstanding that anybody can think of? Because I don't think there is anything. Oh, Gabriel, you still want to order some shirts.
Yes, we have the numbers,
So there might be another $400 coming out for shirts. So essentially maybe about $700-800 will probably come out of this. And then potentially if there's additional tree work, that could be done. Or those funds could be rolled over to the next fiscal year and we can do it later, so it depends. We're on a tight timeline because the 20th, the credit card cuts off. And I can't issue any more checks until next fiscal year. June 20th, the credit card stops working.
stop of the issue, the checks already happened.
Yeah, so so this 6,400, I was able to issue right before the deadline of this month, June 1st. So they're just waiting for final approvals. We're about to get final approvals for right of entry permit with Rex and Parks. Everybody's really excited at Rex and Parks, so that's pretty much what's going on with the budget.
Any chance this work would not hit this fiscal year?
The right of entry permit is pending signature from the Assistant General Manager of Rex and Parks. So barring him not signing off on that, that was the last message I had. Once that right of entry permit is finished, this check will be approved and be sent out. And the contractor,
Okay.
you know, the work can be done next fiscal year. The point,
Understand.
yeah. So we're like, you know, at the finish line basically. Very low probability.
But
I understand what you're saying.
let's assume that lower probability happens. That leaves 6,400 on the table, and plus 5,100, that would exceed the 10,000.
We'd have to call a special meeting,
We'll have a special meeting to spend something,
spend something,
to bring
but
it down to 10.
then it would have to be before the 20th because the credit card cuts off.
I understand.
And something with the credit card. But I'm surprised I didn't get the response today. I would expect something very soon.
Any questions for Treasurer?
Randy had a question, I thought.
Well, I guess it doesn't happen on the next round. You still got the outstanding reimbursements from all the services.
Yeah, so what happened with the BMRs, I couldn't put those on the agenda because we can't issue checks.
Right.
So those are gonna be carried over till July.
When will you be able to get a new card? And when will we be able to start writing checks?
We'll be able to write checks July 1st if we approved our administrative packet. As far as, are you talking about if we approve a second cardholder?
Yeah. I'm just asking for when we can resume financial business.
Oh,
Checks
it's
and
the
cards.
same, July 1st.
July 1st, okay.
Yeah, in the next fiscal year.
Okay, so, all right.
And our new funds will be available, I believe.
Any other
Right.
questions? Any public questions or comments on the financial report? Yes.
If it helps, if you have a project, is a tree project in PG or is it a
No.
community improvement project?
Yeah.
Generally, once you get approval, even if it spills in the next fiscal year, it's not nothing to sweat. As long as you start during.
Yeah, the check was, yeah, so they'll get their check, and then we could do the work next fiscal year.
Technically, as long as you start this fiscal year, you can carry on to the next fiscal.
Yeah. But they'll probably be fine with doing the work, you know, as long as the check is, as long as, once they get the right of entry permit, then we can proceed with the work, and I will work with the contractor regarding the payment. If they want to wait till the check comes, then we'll do that. If they want to go ahead and do the work, knowing the check's coming, then we'll do that, so. And then I'm gonna try and coordinate like a good time and day to do it, because I want to get like good outreach, but I also want to respect all the hikers in the park too.
Okay. Any other comments with treasurer? All right. Thank you. Item 8, presentation from representatives of elected officials or city departments. Ryan,
Me?
would you like to?
I'd love
to.
I know, I timed everything perfectly. Well, hello, council.
You want to turn it on?
Oh. Can you hear me okay? Hello, council. My name is Ryan Valencia, and I serve as district director.
Should I turn it up or is it all right?
You just pick it up. There was mine without it.
It's like-
I'm
Well, I'm loud anyway, so. My name is Ryan Valencia. I serve as district director for Assemblywoman Christy Smith. It's very nice to be with you all this evening. I don't have a significant report to you as I obviously work for the government because I couldn't figure that out. But nothing significant to report. We are in the midst of trying to complete the budget process. The deadline for the state budget is June 15th, so on Saturday, there's a possibility that we won't see your elected officials this weekend, as they will probably have to stay in Sacramento to complete that process. So things are looking pretty good as everything moves through conference and tries to come to a remediation with the governor's proposed budget at the end of last month with the May revision. The May revision was the actual proposed budget by the governor rather than what was supposed to be the January budget that he put forth because this took into account actual revenue rather than projected revenue. So what was a $209 billion budget back in January has become a $212 billion budget. So he's making those kind of adjustments according to that. I will say that there's a number of priorities on his adjustments. One is K through 12 education. Another one is homelessness. There's about $1 billion that has been proposed by the governor to go towards emergency shelters and services into counties for them to spend with their municipalities. So that's one thing that I would be monitoring with LA County Board of Supervisors as to if those dollars do come into fruition once it is passed, what will that look like in terms of programs that they will invest in. Additionally, what we are looking at is CalPERS and CalSTRS. This governor, instead of kind of a big emphasis as the past governor has had on the rainy day fund, has put more towards liabilities and the state's obligations. So there'll be most likely almost I think over $9 billion in trying to help pay towards CalSTRS and CalPERS in his priorities. But anyways, that's kind of where we're at right now. So there's not, we just kind of have this transfer of the assembly bills have gone to the Senate, and the Senate will now start to review assembly bills. So we're kind of in the committee process once again, as we've already passed the deadline for House of Origin. So we'll continue to let you know once those hearings start to happen a little bit more proactively post-budget. But otherwise, one thing that I was with you guys in Title V hearing for the permitting for Aliso Canyon. I can tell you that there will be some significant updates coming from the legislature post-budget. Most likely, a lot of activity happening locally with legislators. So I'll have a more in-depth conversation probably next month once we have a little bit better idea of this session. There was a question.
Sure. Just a thought, not really a thought, but I want to see what is Christy Smith's position on the $100 million budget going for Medicare for the illegals, for the 18 to 24-year-old illegals, and not all the illegals, just the prime voter age illegals?
The member voted no on that bill.
I'm not sure if I have it right. It's the I think it's 8513. It's the one regarding the towing of the large vehicles. You familiar with the city council is just
I
discussing?
heard about it just last week. I do have to check in with the member as to that specific bill.
The city took a position against it, city council took a position against it, but essentially it's the state telling cities that they can't tow these large RV vehicles. Yeah. Yeah, so like this is a big problem that we face in Porter Ranch, but if you could let us know what her position is on that. But I wanted to talk.
I'll get back to you, and what I will say is that additional neighborhood councils have raised that concern. Those calls have come into my office. So
something that you really want to watch. And then the other thing is about education with the Measure E not passing. And is there any information you can share with the budget for the school districts? I know she's very active in education.
Yeah. Sorry.
In terms of like, in terms of any changes in the funding for LAUSD, because you know the budget problems they're having. I don't know if there's any.
I can tell you just in general that as we're trying to be competitive in terms of per pupil spending, and that comes down to trying to invest more in our school districts. I can tell you that the question just continues. It remains, where is the new revenue going to come from without making significant tax increases? And so that's a conversation that they're continuing to have with this budget process. I think I have a better answer for you post budget.
Just
Yeah, but yeah, no, it's it's dawned on us, and we know this very well, that we rank in the bottom 10 in terms of states for per pupil spending, which is a prime example of why we have large class sizes, why we do not invest and have the significant outcomes that we want from our school districts. We have to invest more in our schools, so we have to be competitive.
Yeah, but don't use our houses for it.
Yeah.
Just pass that along. I have a
Well, the member did not back measure PD, if that's the question.
The governor said he was going to, in April, he wanted a report on his desk by May 15th about why gas is so much higher in California than in any other state. He was very adamant about it. Do you have any reports on it? We never heard a word.
I have no report at this time. I'll definitely look into that.
I would appreciate it.
Yeah, I know that there were some reports, in particular due to a lot of the closing of refineries that were happening as we entered the summer season. For some reason, Exxon decided to close many of their.
But it's not to interrupt you, that's every year.
Yeah.
This is not a new problem.
Yeah.
And I'm referring to his report.
Mhm.
I want to see his report because he was very adamant he wanted it by May 15th, and I haven't
Yeah.
seen one thing. So if you could look into that, that would be great.
Definitely, and I will report back once I
Thank
look into
you.
that. Yes, thank you.
I'll understand if you don't know the answer. Do you know if she has on her radar the right to repair bill and how that's going?
I'm not quite aware. Is there a number on that?
I'll have to look up the number. It would be amending the current lemon law because they tried to pass it on its own. It didn't work last year, so now they're amending the lemon law. The idea is that basically, if you own a technology item of any sort, you have the right to maintenance and repair without having to go through authorization channels. The big push on that is actually tractors, because John Deere and other tractor owners or manufacturers will lock you out. So if you replace a major part, for example, the engine, they have to come out with a little USB and you stick it in to authorize it, and they charge hundreds of dollars and sometimes hold it for weeks, so they can't deal with their crops in the meantime. So this would just say, you can't do that. You have to allow someone to do basic maintenance and repair on something they buy.
Okay, well, I will definitely look into it.
Yeah, I'll send you
If you do have if you do find a bill number, I'd really appreciate that, and I'll definitely go back to it. Yes, sir.
Not to go backwards, but to elaborate, you're talking about the secret, the mystery surcharge of like 25 cents a gallon. It's separate from the refinery issue. It's a 20 to 30 cent per gallon mystery charge that no one knows what it's for. That's what the issue is.
Well, that's part of it. The other part of it, I was in Florida, gas is $2.10 a gallon. In California, it was $4.89.
That's a tax. That's a tax.
Why? And he said he would answer that. He demanded an answer, and I never heard it.
That's just a
Okay,
tax tax.
any other?
Yeah, well, I will say that the gas tax took into effect, I think almost 2 years ago. So I mean, in terms of the current price, that's already been adjusted for what that is. So in terms of a mystery surcharge, I'll look into it and definitely will see if there's been any
And I don't
progress
want
in
to
the
put you
report.
on the spot, because I know we don't have the answers. All I'm asking you to do is to get the report to us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll look into it.
Thanks, Ryan. Any public questions for Ryan? Yeah, any questions for Ryan? Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to be here.
I always have to lower these. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matt Biasia. I'm here representing Councilmember Craig Smith in CD12. And I'm sorry, Colin couldn't make it tonight, but I'm here in Mesquite. So I'm here more to listen to you guys, to hear, so I can communicate back to our boss what your thoughts are on things. I know in regards to the towing that you brought up, Jason, that's a very important tool that we have in terms of protecting a lot of our neighborhoods and businesses in CD12. We've had, every day we get calls from business owners who have folks who many times are people who choose a lifestyle of drugs and usually will be camping in front of somebody's business, and a lot of times the employees are afraid to go in and out. We had one gentleman who came to our office, and he was afraid that he was going to lose his business because I guess he ran some kind of something where he had to hire biologists and stuff, and he had to train them, and it takes him a year to train his employees, microbiologists and such. And his employees were leaving, and he said that he couldn't afford to lose his employees because it takes him so long to get them trained in his business. And so there's a lot of situations like that, and you know, that enforcement is really important to, especially Chatsworth, where we are an epicenter. We used to be, I would say, an epicenter for RVs. I know the Councilman Englander did a lot to address that issue for our businesses and our residents, and so that would definitely be something that would impact negatively our ability to protect our community.
David?
So can you enlighten us on where CD12 stands with the increase of homeless in our district? I know Colin's not here today, but
Sure.
we've had a huge increase and it's growing rapidly. So I want to kind of understand what the council can do, work hand in hand with CD12 to work with the homeless. Where are you guys at on this?
Absolutely. So happy to go into it. I know that Colin is the expert on that, but he can give most up-to-date information on what we're working on. But in terms of what I know, and my knowledge is that our district saw a 2% decrease this year in homelessness, whereas on average the city saw 16%. So that's a pretty big difference. I think we're doing everything that we can as a council office to stem the tide in our area. And I know that we do everything we can to influence people to accept services that are available within the city. And a lot of times you find that people are service resistant. A lot of people are, don't trust the police when they come and they make contacts. But what our office did is about 2 years ago, we started the Neighborhoods First program. And that was something that came about because we were getting so many calls about encampments popping up in neighborhoods and in front of businesses and in our communities that we had to do something to address it because it was just crossing, it was getting to the point where it was just, the enforcement that we were getting was not making an impact. I think we had 2 HOPE teams coming out to our district twice a month, and we were getting 50 calls a day about encampments, and it was making no impact. And so when Councilman Englander was in office, he created the Neighborhoods First program, and he funded out of his own office fund, I think to the tune of over $1 million over a year's time. That's my general understanding. I'm sure Tom can give you the specific number, but we funded them 5 days a week to come out to our district so that we can have a HOPE team, we have sanitation, and all of those people hired on overtime from the departments, something that none of the other council districts were doing at the time. This was the first Neighborhoods First program, and it made a significant impact in our communities. Instead of having to tell somebody that we didn't have the resources when they called our office, we could take down their information and we could make sure that a HOPE team could get out hopefully within the week and address the issue. And that has really been impactful because a lot of these folks, you need to make contacts with people in order to gain their trust. And
We do, we get that. But it's growing by leaps and bounds. So I just want to, maybe Colin can reach out to Brandy or myself and figure out, we need to put a game plan together and be a little more proactive because it's growing quickly.
Absolutely. Like I said, we had a 2% increase in our area, and across the county it was 12. In the city average, I believe it was 16. And so we're doing everything we can to. City was 16. I'm sorry. Yeah, city was 16. 12 across the county.
Randy,
The gamer.
Also chair of homelessness, so, on that note with the encampments, would it be possible for your office to share with us, if you have a map or a listing of what you have heard as where encampments are located? Because sometimes you're hearing encampments and then you find one person parked, or there's like one tent, or there's one car, and it's good to know, but then there's the difference between that and where there's dozens of tents and people and garbage and stuff. So I'm trying to for Porter Ranch, create just a listing or understanding of where they are. So
Sure. I know that used to be a bigger issue until we started the Neighborhoods First program, and we haven't seen as much of that because we're pretty on top of it when they do start to grow.
But if you have a list, you can share.
And I'll absolutely ask Colin to see if he can share that. If he I'm not sure if he has that list, but I can ask him about that.
If you get calls for them, and they're in Porter Ranch, can you share that with us, or anything new that comes in?
I'll mention that to Colin to see what he can do.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah, my biggest concern still is the park. What is the council office going to do to make sure our kids are safe playing at the park and no one turn into a homeless big
Which part?
park? The new one, yeah.
I, I don't have the information. I think that we would just, use the same strategy as we do now, as if we have, calls to our office, we will absolutely respond to it.
Because we have no jurisdiction, LAPD has no jurisdiction,
Right.
nobody really has jurisdiction to do anything.
Well, we do have both teams that we pay on overtime. They respond to inquiries from our office, and we're happy to dispatch them when appropriate and needed.
Even as I don't want to tilt the windows, I have to be consistent. We've got still, you can set your clock to the burnouts of the donuts on Reseda and Cessna. If you look at a Google Earth photo, there's 200 yards of nothing but 200-300 circles. If I in-laws a lot on the weekends, and it's literally every 2 hours, you hear it to 2-story column smoke. LAPD can't respond to that point. It's too late. By the time you get there, they're gone. They need to be up there on a regular basis. What
Correct.
is it going to take to get the set team up there, or even just a Devonshire car to deal with this? It's every week in broad daylight, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 6 o'clock on a Sunday. It's just getting worse. I've never seen a cop there dealing.
I will report that to Matt Hernandez, our public safety deputy.
Thanks. And the other thing, number 2, was near my house at 11410 Reseda, a gentleman bought a house to flip it. And he ran out of money right when the session starts. For 9 years, it's been covered 100% particle board, boarded up. And he's getting homeowner's exemption that no one lives in, it's been abandoned. When I talked to the city, they said that because there's nobody to get into it, like a hole, it's not considered abandoned. Because it's not a nuisance for a homeless person to get in there. I know the council's considering an ordinance to deal with people having vacant homes and vacant units and get them moving for the public because of the lack of housing. What's it going to take to get a house completely covered in particle board for 9 years addressed?
That's a good question. I will make sure the councilman hears your concern as well.
Appreciate it.
any other questions from that? Jason?
I just want to thank you for helping with the shopping carts. I'm always calling, and he's always answering the phone, reporting the shopping cart alley that we have on Rinaldi. And so that's a big help because that's something very difficult for us, so we appreciate that. If you could pass on a thanks for Jessie Strobel for helping me with this big park tree project. She was a big help, so if you can let the councilman know, she's doing, helped me a lot with that. And then the other thing is Ron Rubine as well has been a big help to our board, so if you could let the councilman know that.
Great, and Jason, thank you for always letting us know about those issues, because whenever something does pop up, we're able to address it immediately, and then that prevents other folks from,
Right.
20 or 30 people from calling us about the issue, and so you're always on top of that, ahead of the ball, and really it's,
Teamwork.
yeah, it's awesome. It's great to work with you, absolutely. And all of you guys too, I know many of you on the board, so.
Any public questions or comments from that? Yes, please.
What does the HOPE team do that's different than other administrative bodies or officials that seems to be working here that isn't working elsewhere?
The HOPE team are LAPD officers that only deal with homeless issues, and so we have them hired over time, and they respond to our office when we have calls about growing encampments and RVs where there are certain illicit activities that are taking place where we can try to address it if it's creating a large problem in the community, or if we get a lot of calls
So
about.
they're paid out of a separate budget?
Yes, I don't know what the budget is, but I'm sure Colin, he works on that issue directly, and so he could give you all the details on it. Sorry, I didn't have it.
I believe the HOPE team is paid by LAPD. It's a function. We only have one HOPE team for pretty much all of Los Angeles, well, most of the valley. We have one team. No, I'm pretty positive, because we discussed this at CPAP, so we only have one HOPE team that goes out every single day. I mean, they're relentless, and it's never ending, because they'll clean, and literally the next day, it comes right back. So,
Yeah, it's a whack-a-mole situation, but the whole thing is you have to stay on top of it.
tell Colin, thanks for staying on top of it.
Just a second. Greg?
Yeah, really quick, David, do you think the 2% was understated on the growth?
No, but I opened it to
Yes.
the public, let me.
Yeah, fine. What, you know, just an eyeball, what do you think the growth has been? Is it 20%? Just, because I know you're.
I would say just recently, I would say it's closer to in the valley, it's probably closer to 15 to 20%. And it's gonna get worse. I mean, we're looking even in my industry, which is the title insurance industry.
Right.
People are talking that we're looking at a decline in real estate in the next six to 9 months. Everybody's gearing up for it. And if you look on a website, how many houses are being foreclosed on, and the foreclosure radar, and you look at how many are going back to the bank, these people are all gonna be on our streets. It's just astronomical, and it's just gonna get worse. So we need to really be at the forefront and come up with a solution before it gets out of control.
Thank you.
Becky?
A question, I know that they're building more bike lanes along the LA River. I know Glenn, because you and I worked on that years ago. How many officers were hired to patrol all those extra miles of streets? I mean, I know you don't know the number, but I'd like to know how many officers Devonshire got. I'd like to know how many more officers the Los Angeles Police Department was allowed to fund to protect those areas, because I think they didn't hire very many, if any, and that we have all these miles and miles of roads that we didn't get any extra police protection for. Like we're talking about the park, how many more officers, with all the revenue that's created up here in Porter Ranch by the sale of homes, are we gonna get to patrol that park? That many. And I think that's something that, we need to address with the powers that be. But I'd like to know if any were hired, all those miles. Do you know, Glenn?
Well, I know that they moved hundreds of officers that were in administrative positions, replaced them with civilians. Also, they hired through the LAPD instead of the sheriffs for all of the metro, including the Orange Line responsibility. So that's some of that's overtime, and so it's not necessarily new additional officers, which is part of the problem.
Because these seem to be hot spots for the homeless.
I know when Councilman Miller was in office, I believe he submitted the motion that got approved where a lot of the police stations that are staffed at night that don't get a lot of foot traffic or people coming in, there were a lot of officers that would man or staff the front desk. And so I think he had called for those officers being dispatched and closing, the ability to go in. And if you need services at the time, you can ring the bell and an officer will come out. But just to have the officers sitting at the desks was not being productive, and it would have been better to have
Well,
those.
because a lot of times the basic cars don't have enough people in the basic cars to field all those.
Right. So now we have more officers out of the desk at that time and in cars, so.
Okay, last comment, David, please.
Just a footnote for everybody. So the sheriffs are gonna have a station up here very soon. They're building a station up closer to the new development. So you will start seeing more sheriffs patrolling this area as well, because they're gonna be close. Instead of being all the way out in Simi, they're gonna have a station out here. So that will help out our LAPD as well.
There's always room for more officers.
Exactly.
If I may suggest, we've asked him a lot of questions for a lot of information, and he can't take notes while he's talking. If I may suggest, Gabriel, would you please put together a list of the questions that we have? We can forward them to the office so that at least they have time to respond and get us the information we're asking. Otherwise, he's not going to remember all this stuff. Mike, you got the last comment.
Okay, thank you. I actually had the liberty of talking to Peter Lynn of LASA, Director of LASA, and I finally pinned him down. He agreed with me that most of the problem, and I think this council really needs to know, that the main problem is the resources for bridge homes and portable housing is absolutely bottlenecked. I actually heard that from other officials, which I'm not allowed to say. It's bottlenecked to the extent where if there's not affordable housing and bridge homes, there's no place to put the people. So actually, 3/4 of Proposition H and HHH has already been spent, and if it's not being spent on the issues at hand, well, then it's just going to pay employees and whatnot. Now, I'm not saying they're not doing anything, but when we originally got into this, we were supposed to build 10 affordable housing units for the next 10 years. We built 2 in 2 years, and that's part of the problem. There's no place to put these people. So unless the neighborhood councils get together and work together and kind of push back a little bit and say, we want something done, that's where our problem is. Would you agree?
I will actually.
I hate to put you on the
I'll
spot.
defer to Colin because he is our expert in that field, and it would help if I gave my opinion on that.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
So
would you please?
I'm gonna invoke privilege. if I may. This is public comment, but, that's for public comment, but,
Budget
but,
report, can you give me a couple of
Yes.
minutes?
yes, it's all in one card.
Beautiful, thank you.
So Glenn Bailey, I am one of your 2 remaining budget advocates for Region 2. And I decided to be here tonight because this would likely be my final meeting that I would need to come to as a budget advocate. Doesn't mean I won't come. But if the vacancy that we have is filled by one of your fellow board members, then your fellow board member will give the budget advocate report each month if you put it on the agenda. So here's my quick updates. As you probably all know, the annual budget day is on June 29th at City Hall. Registration and breakfast starts at 7:30 a.m. and the general session will start at 8:30, but do try to get there early. It's usually a very good breakfast, worth getting up early for. After the presentations from the citywide officials and some of the council members, and I do know it includes City Controller Ron Galpern as a teaser, and then we break out into regions and we discuss concerns in each of the regions. So for this area, it'll be regions 1 and 2, which is the North Valley, and folks will have an opportunity to say these are the issues that we're facing, and say this is the and help put it into the mix for budget advocates to work on for the following year. Just a couple of updates on what budget advocates have done since the last time I reported to you. First of all, they've changed the bylaws so that now budget reps, every neighborhood council gets 2 budget reps. Can be board members, can be stakeholders. I know you've already done your 2 budget reps, but just a reminder, if you didn't, it's by default the president and the treasurer. But congratulations on doing your 2 budget reps. The change in the bylaws is they now serve at the pleasure of the board, which means it's not a 1-year term and you have to revote by every June. So that now they'll just stay as your budget reps until you decide to make a change. So I want you to be aware of that. And the second change that was made was that the budget advocates voted to extend their terms another year. And this follows last year having extended their terms. I and a number of other budget advocates voted against that because we think that's what budget day is for, but a majority did approve it. However, we do have the 1 vacancy, so we will be filling for at least one of the positions for this region on budget day. And I think that's it. Yes.
I just want to say, if anybody goes to budget day and runs into Ron, please congratulate him because he and his husband in September are going to be proud fathers of twins. So,
You will be there. You will be there. Okay, thank you. It's been my pleasure for the last, because I think Brian, Allen, and I have shared the 8 neighborhood councils in Region 2, and it started off I think with Deidre, but I think more often than not I've been the one coming here, and so it's been my pleasure. It's not that I'm going away, but I just won't be at this microphone talking and giving the budget advocate report, assuming one of your own is elected as budget advocate. Okay?
Glenn, you've done a tremendous job.
yes. Seriously, thank you for everything.
My pleasure.
Okay, any other public official comments, department? No, all right. Public comments, matters not on the agenda. I have two requests for comments. Who would like to make public comment? Other than the two that I have. Lorraine and Glenn, I have from you. Mike too, okay, 3. All right, please,
I just spoke.
Lorraine, go ahead, please.
Ladies first.
You good with 3 minutes? Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. Dylan? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being neighborhood council board members. I always want to say that when I come to neighborhood councils because I know that you all do so much as volunteers, and I want to thank you for that work. For anyone who doesn't know me, I am Dr. Lorraine Lundquist. I think I know most of the people in the room, but especially to the new neighborhood council board members for Border Ranch Neighborhood Council, thank you so much for stepping up and becoming board members, and I look forward to working with you. I am one of the candidates for Los Angeles City Council District 12 in the runoff election. You probably know that we just had the primary election on June 4th, and that the runoff election is scheduled for August 13th. And I first of all want to say thank you so much to all of the people in this room who did come out and support me and help get me into the runoff. I appreciate your support, and for those of you who voted for other candidates, I hope I can earn your trust and your support. I look forward to working together with all of you, including the board members and members of the community, on all of the issues that you've been talking about tonight and all of the values that we share. So, for example, the homelessness count numbers that are just incredible. I think those of us who are living in the community know that the numbers are, the increase is so large. We were experiencing that, we have been experiencing that, but to see it in the data is really shocking, and it's really important that we make sure that we are attacking the causes of this crisis and not just creating Band-Aid solutions. It's not going to be enough to just keep doing the HOPE teams and putting up no parking signs. These kinds of things are not going to be enough to stem the tide of this growing source of new homeless people. We found in the count that 54,000 new people became homeless last year in the county, and we housed 21,000 of them, but there were so many people newly on the streets that the new people newly becoming homeless overwhelmed the work that we've been doing. So we need to attack the root of this problem, which is basically the affordability of housing. We need to create more housing and make sure that everybody can afford to live here and be able to live in their homes. And we need to catch people before they become homeless and provide services. It's a lot cheaper to provide services before someone is living on the streets than after people are living on the streets. I also have been privileged to work together with so many of you on the Aliso Canyon issue, and we're going to be fighting that fight together to protect our community, to keep our community safe, and get that facility shut down, and I'm looking forward to continuing that work with all of you together. My time is up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I tried, I didn't get through it in time.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to tell you, I feel right at home here. I know so many of you good folks. My name is Mike Benedetto. I am the Vice President of Granada Hills South Neighborhood Council, also intern for Senator Hertzberg. As some of you don't know, I'm also the President of the Granada Hills Chamber of Commerce. And since I was in the neighborhood, I thought I'd stop by and let you know that we're going to be sending a neighborhood purpose grant down the pipeline to you folks and trying to get a little support for the street fair. I figure if we can share the ups and downs, certainly the down of Aliso Canyon, the tragedy, of course, I mean, it pertains to you folks a lot more than us, but we share that with you as neighbors, and we fight that fight with you as good neighbors. But let's share some happy times and have you join us in the Granada Hills Street Fair. and hopefully we can count on your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Glenn Bailey again. This time wearing my hat as a member of the Valley Alliance of Neighborhood Councils, Executive Committee, and just to remind you all that the Valley Alliance Neighborhood Councils includes the 34 neighborhood councils in the Valley. We meet once a month on the second Thursday of the month. Sherman Oaks Hospital, that's tomorrow night, 6:30. You're all invited. Since Susan is not attending, I would really appreciate if you could either have someone or share someone who would come regularly to the meetings. It's really important to have all the neighborhood councils represented. So that's my personal plea, and I'm going to continue reminding, and until you have a regular person attending there, maybe you can be there. But tomorrow night on the agenda, and hopefully you all got that e-blast yesterday, but I do want to point out that Gracie Liu, this will be her last meeting as general manager of Dunn. It'll be interesting to see what she has to share with her, not just with her new position, which will continue to involve neighborhood councils with personnel, outreach, but also maybe what she might say about her, 7 years, 8 years as general manager, some parting thoughts. So that may be some interest in my remaining. Personnel, she'll be assistant general manager of the personnel department, and she'll be working on recruitment and outreach, but there is a neighborhood council connection. So I do want to also give you a heads up that I don't remember, okay, so let me just do it. I know I was here last month, but I don't remember exactly what I said. So our planning forum has been confirmed for being in November. That's for planning and land use. It includes workshops, breakout sessions. I don't think I knew it was confirmed for November last time. So I'm telling you it is confirmed. It's the second Thursday. It'll be at CBS Studio Center. So please put that on your calendar. It's
The second Thursday. Oh, the second Thursday.
November.
It'll be the 14th of November.
Sounds good. That does sound good, truly.
What time?
Usually the doors open about 5:36,
Yeah.
and it goes to like 9. So we haven't worked out the full program, but generally there's like a panel or plenary session, and then they break out into different breakout sessions. So those of you who've been there before, actually we'll be asking for input on topics that may be of interest. That's number one. Number two, we're going to have a neighborhood council election wrap-up session. That's to get input on how well the city clerk did or not, and how well the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment did or not, from the perspectives of the neighborhood councils in the valley. I wish I could give you a confirmed everything, but it appears it's going to be in June. I'm sorry, I've gone over time. I was hoping to have a reply by coming here by tonight's meeting. Tentatively, it's set for Monday, June 24th at the Balboa Sports Complex, which is in Encino. It's on Balboa and Burbank, right off the 101 freeway. More or less centrally located, I guess. Anyway, parking, the challenge between Browdy Center is the parking is the problem. So this one, at least there's lots and lots of parking. So I know you didn't have an election, and maybe that was because things could have been better planned or better held in terms of the rules, the election procedures by city clerk. For example, many neighborhood councils complained that there was only 30 days for candidate filing, whereas it was 45 days before when Dunn did it. So for some folks, they didn't even have a board meeting. It's just the way the calendar fell. They didn't even have a board meeting at all during that candidate filing period. So just whatever it is that you have, wanting to give that input. And then lastly, I know I mentioned last time that we do a list of council files. I think I mentioned that they're posted on the webpage for alliances, and I know I gave a copy of the last one, but that was the night before.
It's on the agenda. Yeah.
Yes, I know, and I'm taking my time now to, this is now my bold, but it's the most current one that exists now. But on the webpage, it's on the top of this, it does, any new posting will be there. So do you have the?
I'm using your sheet. Is it
You have the
May?
May?
Yeah, May 9th?
Great.
Yeah.
We sent it out with the.
Yeah.
Okay, super.
Thank you.
So June will be up, hopefully tomorrow night. You can see it on the website. It'll be handed out at the venue tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What time is it done election review?
All of this is subject to confirmation, so please don't show up until you get an actual notice, either 6:30 or 7.
I was just gonna say that for the election review, even though you didn't have an election, and even if nobody either wants to or can attend, if anybody has any issues that they would like to just weigh in on, if you send something written to either Ben or me or both of us, we will make sure that it gets discussed, gets passed along.
Okay.
And we did make it, last time we did this 3 years ago, or 5, we made a difference, we got changes done, because we spoke as, multiple neighbor counties.
All right. Any other public comment? Okay, thank you. We're on schedule. It's 7:10, we're done with item 8 and 9. We're moving to item 10. Item 10 is the selection and seating of new board members to fill the vacant board seat. We received 4 applications for the board, and they are in your packets. I think we have 3 of the candidates in the room, correct? Yeah. Okay, so here's what I would like us to do. No, people here with that. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to ask the candidates if they would take 2 minutes and introduce themselves and, tell us why they want to do this. And then maybe some questions from the board and some questions from the public. I'd like to, the agenda on this is a total of 20 minutes, so I'd like to sort of have 5 minutes with each candidate, and then we'll take the vote. The vote will be sort of silent but open. So I made sheets. You will, every board member will get a sheet of paper that has his or her name on it. You will write on it which candidates you're voting for. You'll give them to Glenn, and then Glenn will read them out individually, stating who voted for whom. That way no one vote is influenced by another vote. We have insufficient pens that will pass around. As much as, sounds good? Okay, so, can't do anything without my glasses. We're going to do the VAC for this one. I'm doing the VAC. Okay, so, Ms. Azaburian?
Yes.
No, don't worry about it.
You're so kind.
Thank you.
It's my best. We appreciate that, thank you.
Amazing.
All right, good evening. My name is Alida Sadorian. So why do I want to run? I live in the neighborhood. I live in the Renaissance neighborhood. I grew up here in Porter Ranch. I moved away about 12 years ago, and I've now moved back about 3 years ago. My kids attend this school, so I find Porter Ranch, is my home. In terms of me and some background on me, I'm a lawyer. I'm a litigation partner at a large international law firm called Reed Smith. I primarily do environmental, insurance, and banking litigation. In fact, I have a lot of experience with the lawyers that represent SoCal because I used to work at Morgan Lewis, which is the firm that represents SoCal. I also am very connected in the legal industry, obviously, and the law firm world in downtown Los Angeles and globally. So that's my background. I think I can add a lot of value given that experience. I've been a litigator for about 20 years. I have experience in the courts. I serve as a temporary judge in the LA County court system. I'm working on the traffic court and the small claims bench. I also do a lot of work pro bono for women's shelters and legal aid services, that our firm regularly contracts with. So that's my background. I think where my voice could be unique and could be valuable is perhaps offering some support around the Aliso Canyon issue and driving that sort of crusade forward. If I can offer guidance on that issue, coupling with the lawyers that are doing the good plaintiffs work that they are on the toxic tort litigation side, and helping perhaps to bridge any gaps of clarity that might exist in that space. The homelessness issue is also a priority for me, and one that I think could offer more resources towards, and that's where I think that I can provide more guidance if it means liaising with our council members, if it means understanding the laws that prevent us from doing better work. So,
Thank you.
sure. Any questions I can answer?
How many member council meetings would you say you've attended?
Probably about 3. Yes.
So, being on the neighborhood council, it takes a lot of work.
Sure.
So my question to you is, with such a full schedule, trust me, kids, school, your law firm, your practice, are you going to be able to facilitate a position on this board with a committee being able to do outreach in the community on weekends or when we have events? Because it does take up quite a bit of time.
Yeah, excellent question, and one that I would ask of myself, and if I were sitting in your shoes, would ask of me as well. It's one that I thought hard about. I'm not the type of person that's not going to commit to something if I can't fulfill that promise. Luckily, given the amount of juggling that I already do, I'm a master at juggling time, and it's one of my skills that I, have to have honed through my life. My kids are a little bit older, and they're here all the time at the school, and they, take part in all of the neighborhood activities. So I'm happy to bring them along when I can, and they'd be excited to be part of that. My husband works from home primarily. He has a biotech startup company, so he does a lot of work from home. And because I'm a partner, I kind of get to keep my own time.
Somebody else with a question?
Vicky asked my question. So.
Yeah.
Yes. So you're obviously a very responsible, dedicated person, and
I'd like to think so.
I think you'd be good. The one concern I have, so looking at your interests in like homelessness, crime and safety, and those committees are we're not allowed to have more than 3 members on them, and they're full. The one that we really need is, we don't have the Aliso Canyon one, but our chair for environmental sustainability left. That's the seat is being filled. So are you okay doing other committees besides the ones that you check? Or if you just really want to be involved in these issues, then maybe you might not want to be on the board, but just be part of the committee.
Yeah, I mean, those were just from the suggested list. Those were several priorities for me. But as a new member, I understand that we all have to assist where the assistance is necessary. And obviously, I'll be newer, and I'm going to have to learn from you all how this works. So whatever support you need in whatever committee, I'm happy to offer my services.
May I say something? We're not going to get into the legalese now, but you recognize that we are part of the city government.
I do.
The city has its own lawyers. We are completely and absolutely separated from any legal or litigious discussion regarding Aliso Canyon as a board.
Okay.
Okay?
I understand.
And I'm curious, we had a retreat on Saturday. You were not there. I wonder if you have thought about coming to the retreat and participating.
I was not aware there was a retreat, nor did I understand that was open to.
Do you get our
public.
e-blasts?
I do get the e-blast, but I thought the retreat was for the board members.
No,
for the public.
it's a public meeting.
Okay.
It's a public meeting, yeah. All right. Becky?
And just like on a personal note, you say that you grew up in Porter Ranch. Would you like to share what schools you went to?
Sure. I didn't go to schools in Porter Ranch. I did grow up in Porter Ranch, though. I went to UCLA undergrad and UCLA Law School, but before that I was in an elementary school in Hollywood that my parents would drive into because that's where they worked. So they would drop me off.
What about high school?
Same school in Hollywood. It was an Armenian private school that doesn't exist anymore.
My
question's really quick.
How much time do you think you'd be able to commit to the board, whether it be going to events or working on motions or whatever? Like, how many hours per week do you think you'd be able to reasonably give to this volunteer crusade that we part of?
Well, tell me how many hours you think is necessary.
Well, based on your schedule, and based on, what do you think you can, just try and give me the most
Yeah,
honest answer
5 to 10 hours?
per week? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Let's go with- Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Lee Comer. I was born on a warm summer afternoon back in the late 70s. Oh, we don't have much time. No, I'm a new member to Porter Ranch. I just moved here back in February, and I really wanted to just jump in and get my feet wet. My kids will be attending the school here this fall. Since we just moved, they let them finish off the school year in their last school. So they'll start kindergarten and second grade. I live here and I work here. I work out of my home office. I have a small environmental company. I primarily do what's called a phase 1 environmental assessment reports. And I'm just really interested in getting involved in the community where I plan on living, working, raising my kids, and being a part of for many years. So I figured the neighborhood council was the best route. I used to live in the area covered by Northridge South, but my kids were very young at the time, and being the work from home parent, I was mainly in charge of them, didn't have time. Now that they're a little bit older, and also my wife has a new job, which is more flexible, I have more time to get out to be a part of the community. So that's one of the main reasons why I'm interested in joining the board.
Okay. Thank you. Questions?
Yeah, I got just a general question. Like, what would you like to see the neighborhood council do, or what efforts would you like to lead if you got on the board? You have any ideas for, taking on projects, or maybe doing something at the school, or do you have you thought about any things that you'd like to do if you were on the board?
I'm not here specifically to chase any issue. I've been to just a few meetings so far to really understand what the neighborhood councils do. From the list of things, I thought bylaws, community would be interesting, community outreach, I think would be quite interesting.
But aside from that, I mean, like, not necessarily the committees, I just say, like, in Porter Ranch, for example, you want to work on the sidewalks, or you'd like to, is there something in Porter Ranch that you'd like to see, something you'd like to do in the community?
Again, probably the parks, something I can do with my kids much more often. I mean, we live right across the street here, and I'm really interested in this new park that's going to be coming about. Obviously, there's a lot of discussion going on with that.
Right.
What the kind of overseeing what goes in at the vineyards and other Porter Ranch Center, just kind of keeping an eye on those type of things. Obviously, again, we eat, we dine, we live, and kind of shop those there, so it's, where I'm at.
Any other questions?
Yes. Now, if you're not elected, would you feel that you would be participating in any of the committees, and if yes, which one would be your first choice?
Yes, I think we'd like to be, I plan to be involved in our, if I'm elected or not. Yes, like I said before, the bylaws or the community outreach. Those would be my top two.
Thank you.
And thank you. You said that you're interested in your business is environmental. Is it in any particular part of the environmental?
It's the
That's
smallest
a big word.
snowflake on the glacier of environmental. When somebody buys a commercial property, my company does an environmental assessment to see if there's any contamination around that property. Really,
Any other questions?
Well, given your background and what you marked, would you be interested in sharing the environmental sustainability one?
I'm not sure about that, because my background is not actually in environmental. My background is business. I say I run a business and I hire the smart people to run the background stuff.
Any other questions?
And did you grow up around here, or?
No, I grew up in South Orange County. I moved up here to go to CSUN in 2000. And that's where I graduated from, and I've lived here ever since.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
not here?
No.
This is the fifth application, and no show?
That doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's not here.
Well, I'm just trying to.
Go ahead.
Good evening, board. I think many of you know me. My name is Hassan Memorian. I have had a pleasure of serving at this board from August of 2017 until March of 2019, just a couple of months ago. As a background, I'm semi-retired right now. I have a small consulting company, and I have a lot of time on my hands, so that's one of the reasons I joined the board and decided to participate in activities. My background is a material science engineer. I have a PhD in material science. I've done some environmental work, but not a lot. I have lived in this community since 1995, and basically my kids grew up in this neighborhood. They went to elementary and high school in this neighborhood, and I love this community. It's been great for us in terms of the sense of having a very close-knit, safe community. What changed here was some years back when we had the Aliso Canyon, where we had to relocate the entire family, including some friends from our neighborhood, and that really opened our eyes to one of the biggest environmental issues that we have in our backyard. So that's one of the reasons I really wanted to join forces with the board. I think I've had my voice heard on many of the votes that this particular board has taken on many issues, interacting with federal agencies, with city officials, and so forth. I did serve with Susan with several committees. Actually, one of them was the homelessness committee. I served with her for a number of months until Brandon joined us and I exited. I did also participate in the homelessness committee with David, and I would like to join the board back, sorry. If I could again be a helpful decision maker and participant to this board, I would appreciate the opportunity to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll open the floor, David.
Yes. So you also sat on sustainability.
Yes.
Is that something you would still have passion for?
I do, because my background is actually, some of it goes back to green energy, solar cells, wind films, controlling the environment in terms of reduction of heat, CO2s and so forth. So yes, I would love to join that.
Well, with Susan gone, that committee is open and not filled, so.
Yeah, I would be more than happy to head that.
Okay.
How come you didn't?
Just a,
Oh, I thought you pointed to me, sorry.
Assad, then Becky, then Brandon.
You are also involved with the emergency preparedness.
Yes.
Do you feel you would be leaning more towards having an active emergency evacuation plan?
Yes, actually, not the last retreat, but the year before, we had a discussion and I brought up this topic that this community really does not have a emergency preparedness plan. And we had hoped to create a committee and put some meetings there and then discuss, what are the things we can do in case another emergency happens. We had some discussion. Unfortunately, we never really had that committee officially launched, but that's actually one of my passions because I worked for a couple of Fortune 500 companies. I was a general manager for about 25 years. And for every division, we had an emergency plan, how to exit in case of fires, earthquake, or just about any other issues. So yes, I have some experience and I would love to rejoin those committees.
I need to get everybody's questions.
Yeah.
Becky?
How come you didn't run the last time? 'Cause-
So last time, and I had a discussion with some, I had an family emergency issue that was really taking a lot of my time with my mom. So I decided not to run. And after that situation got resolved and I saw the opportunity, I said, now I can get back. So
You were a real asset to work with.
thank you.
Sorry to see you not come back. Now we have didn't see you.
Yeah, you were a fantastic board member.
Thank you.
There's been a discussion, and we haven't taken it up as an official issue yet, to maybe expand the number of seats on the board. So if that were to come up for a vote, would you be in favor of it? What was it, Claire?
If we increase from 11 seats to say 13 or 15,
Would he be in favor of that?
will he vote for it or against it in the bylaws?
We can't even do 11.
Can we stay on part, she asked a question, if you can answer this.
I would be in favor of it for the simple reason, we do seem to have very little participation in our community, unfortunately, for coming and becoming part of the sport. Some people, after a while, they exit due to whatever reasons. So having more board members and hopefully being part of more committees might help to ignite a little bit of more interaction with the community. That's just my personal opinion.
You exited, and I'm a little concerned about that. Is everything behind you?
Yes. It was an emergency. I actually had to leave the country for
I understand. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
Do I have
Okay.
something for you?
He's not here, so we have whatever information we have on him from his application. Every board member can choose to vote as she or he will. Randy, if you don't mind, if you can, they're packed together, so this is Ron, Lori, Becky, David Phelan,
I'm guessing the
Please.
pictures won't go around.
Jason,
Payment.
Maybe there's a-
Lasher.
Jason.
Got her name.
I get to vote using.
Wow,
he saw
That's not
You went overboard on the plane.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to ask every board member to write the name of the candidate they would like to vote for. We're going to give them to Glenn, put them in his transparent bag, and he will read them off after that.
Are we doing one or two?
You're doing one board member, and, okay, so we'll do board member. If anyone gets the majority of the board vote, it's done. If no one gets the majority of the board vote, we'll take the top two, we'll do a second vote. Okay? Sounds good?
Got it.
Where's our?
Leader.
Get put in the hat.
David.
Funny looking hat there.
I saw something too.
Just kidding. Probably will have a name on it.
Jason, I never cheat.
I wanted to see it.
Yes. Yes, did everybody give you a vote?
Everybody return their ballot?
All right, would you please read them at the mic?
David voted for, David Lasher.
Can we write our names? Are we supposed to write our names? on it?
David Lasher.
It's on there.
They were pre-printed.
Oh, it's on there.
Yeah.
Never mind. Hello.
So, sorry, I don't have the list of the candidates.
He wrote the wrong name.
I apologize.
Hey, Issa, we pay Glenn a lot of money
Wait until you-
to run selection, so,
What?
we pay him a lot of money to run selection.
Yeah, I don't tell. He has a professional bag in the end.
Experienced parliamentarian. Yeah, I thought the whole point of doing this was to make the votes anonymous.
No, it's not
No, it's so
influential.
that
It's
if
not
you
a-
vote before I vote, your vote doesn't influence.
You
my vote.
influence.
Oh, is that the point?
Yeah.
It's like I'll do
Our
it.
votes are public.
I get it.
Votes are public, which is already a bad idea.
I didn't understand why we did that.
Yes.
It's a public meeting and you cannot have a secret vote of any kind.
Yeah.
in a public meeting.
But you can keep the suspense though.
Yeah, right.
I didn't understand. Judy, keep it straight. I know you were.
Or, okay.
Somebody could have voted for him.
It's okay if I give it to you.
Oh, sure.
Temporary.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Becky voted for Hassan. Assad voted for Hassan. Moran voted for Lilith. Lori voted for Lee. Hassan voted for Hassan. Randy voted for Hassan. David Dalen voted for Hassan. David Lasher voted for Hassan.
Francis, really?
Gabriel voted for Lily. Jason voted for Lily.
Okay, what's the count?
316.
56?
Hassan 6.
Okay. And we will call the election 6 out of 11. Word majority. Thank you. And thank you very much.
One, thank you.
For the opportunity.
Thank you.
We're still stay involved,
Yes, thank you.
Any other seat coming?
Steady.
Sorry,
I hope you'll come to all of this meetings.
I hope to too.
I want, will you please make sure these go on the record? I know I trust Glenn, but it's not that point. The point is we want to make sure that you read the records.
Oh.
Okay?
Can I confirm them?
Well, that's why
Yes, please. Just. Give us a minute.
Swear him in.
You swear.
Yeah, Matt can do it.
Yeah.
The council.
Council of War.
Ready to read off the script?
It's a thrilling experience.
Good.
All right, sir, raise your right hand
Lori.
and repeat after me. I pledge to represent my neighborhood with dignity, integrity, and pride.
I pledge to represent my neighborhood with dignity, integrity, and pride.
I will encourage other points of view, even when they differ from my own.
I will encourage other points of view, even when they differ from my own.
I will respect, value, and consider everyone's opinion.
I will respect, value, and consider everyone's opinion.
I will find the good in my neighborhood and praise it and promote it.
I will find the good in my neighborhood and praise it and promote it.
To my neighbors and to the neighborhoods throughout the city of Los Angeles, I pledge to do this to the best of my ability.
To my neighbors and to neighbors throughout the city of Los Angeles, I pledge to do this in the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Gets us to this side.
Thank you, Lord.
You got.
You're over here.
There. But then you do one.
Either one.
You choose.
Okay, Hassan, can you tell me which certification you have that are current, if any?
As of 2 months ago, they were both valid, I believe, but I need to check.
Okay, I don't know how they carry over.
The only thing that doesn't carry over is the code of conduct, but you have 30 days, you have to redo it every time you're elected or re-elected.
So he's eligible to vote.
So he's eligible to vote, he has a 30-day window to do it, and as long as the other two are current, then it's good to go. But that makes it good for 2 years, so if you did it within 2 years, then you can vote on signing that. But do make sure you redo the code of conduct, because the penalty is removal from office if you don't do it 30 days.
Okay. Just a second. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the election of the board vice president. So here's what I would like to do. I'm going to open the floor for any self-nomination or for any fellow board nomination. We will have a full list of who is nominated or is nominating him or herself or being nominated. Then I'm going to pass around and ask each member to speak for just 1 minute why, and just have a little bit of a board discussion for another minute, and we'll move on to the next candidate. And then we're going to do the same vote the way it was done. We will have a silent, open vote. Okay? Any questions? Yes? Just a second. Any question? All right, so let me open the floor for nominations. Yes, please.
I nominate you.
Okay. This is not a motion, just a second. A nomination for Gabriel. Who else wants to nominate oneself or someone else?
I nominate David Bailey.
Okay, we have 2 nominations for vice president. Anyone else?
Okay, I'm a little confused here. He's already nominated once, do we nominate him twice? No? Did you not nominate him?
No.
Okay, so who? See, I
Okay,
can't see.
Becky, let me tell you what just happened.
Thank you.
She nominated Gabriel.
Oh, okay, I didn't hear, I
Yeah.
did not hear that.
Hassan nominated, Assad nominated David
Gotcha, okay.
Bailey. Any other nomination? Okay, so we have 2 candidates for vice president. David, would you give us a quick note?
Sure.
Why?
Absolutely. So, all you guys know, I'm David Balin, and I have been on the board for a long time. I'm looking to fill Susan's shoes. She did a great job. She was always reaching out to the community, and I too reach out to the community as well. We did the homelessness together. We did sustainability together. I've done traffic and safety. I've done education. I go to the meetings outside of our meetings. Okay, I'm very involved in our community. Matter of fact, even for tomorrow night's meeting, I will be there if I become the vice president. You can count on me showing up at every one of those meetings. I can be reached. My day never ends. I'm at like 5 in the morning, and I normally don't go to bed till 11. You guys can always reach me. The community can reach me. My phone is there for everybody. I feel like I'm the right person. So I hope I get your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
My name is Gabriel Kellen. I've been seating here as secretary for about 3 years now. I have all the experience. I've been working hard the last 3 years doing everything nobody else wanted to do on the board 3 years ago as secretary. And I think I've accomplished all my duties. I want to move on to the next step, which is going to vice president, take on different projects and different events. I'm also on the safety committee. I'm on CPAP. I'm the president of Renaissance, and I'm open to do much more. So if anybody has any objection, hopefully you vote me for vice president. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any public comment? Okay, any board comment?
I have a question.
Yes.
What happens with these
secretary, but let's just see if we can come to this.
No one can be in both positions as, so we would need to have another secretary.
Would that happen right away? Would that happen tonight?
It's not on the agenda. Like,
No. The next agenda, next meeting.
It would be at the next meeting, yes. Okay?
I have a question.
Yes, Hassan.
Can both candidates elaborate more on time management? Susan was a super wonder woman. I think she did at least 7-8 hours a day. So both candidates, if we please can elaborate more on their time management. Thank you.
David, go ahead.
Sure, absolutely. So with my business, I'm in the title insurance industry. I've executed my time to the utmost. I'm able to multitask beyond most people. That's why I was always able to help Susan on sustainability, help Susan on homeless, we work together on the mayor's council for homelessness. I'm able to juggle my time better than most. I'm always available. Putting in the time, I guess, there's time in the day. Like I said, I'm able to juggle better than most. I think most of you know, if you've ever tried to reach out to me, I'm always available. Even at the last minute, if you need me, I'm there.
Okay.
I'm actually, I never sleep. How's that? You can reach me any time of day. The only time you can't reach me probably is early hours. I do my business primarily between after midnight to about 6 a.m. So during the day, during the afternoon, I'm always available. That's why in the past year or two, I've been on most of the events that we've thrown. I try to be there, take my kids, let my kids get involved, and shows them proper ethics as well to participate and get involved in the community. So I do have time, I can make time, and if I need to, I can make more time by allocating or distributing my times on weekends and etc. I live right here, and I have multiple phone numbers, you can reach me, and I'm here to do what needs to be done. Thank you.
No, it's the 26th. Yes. Oh, okay, so the question, okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. April, no, you don't. It's yours.
No.
That is all the candidate. All right, so, we're done. If you can all cast your vote and bring it to Glenn.
Okay, have all the ballots?
Okay.
I'll do it the same way as I
Yes,
last time.
please.
Okay, Assad, vote for David. Gabriel, voted for Gabriel. David Lasher voted for David. Lori voted for Gabriel. Becky voted for David. Moran voted for Gabriel. Hassan voted for David.
Hassan.
Hassan.
Sorry.
That kind of pronunciation. Randy voted for Gabriel. Some voted for Gabriel. Jason voted for David.
Last vote.
David Balin voted for David.
Good choice.
6-5. 6-5.
6 for David?
6 for David.
All right. Thank you, please.
Yep. Yep.
You're confirming those?
Yes.
Let me, I'll. Oh, right, thank you. Just give me a minute.
The fact it's so close represents the quality of the.
Yeah, well, almost.
No, second David.
You're the best secretary we ever had.
Thank you.
All right. So with that, David Phelan is the new board vice president. Okay, with that, it is a good time to break for 10 minutes. All right. Calling the meeting, 5 minutes late, sorry. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike. You know, just want to make a quick comment. I'm being extremely dry and abrupt in everything I'm doing, and I'm running the meeting. You know, I'll have to do this for the sake of timing, but I don't mean to be.
You're doing an excellent job.
Doing a great job.
Item 12 is for Miran. Item 12, if you can do it in 10 minutes, Miran, I'd appreciate it.
So I have to ask you a question.
Yes, please.
Can I amend on this motion?
Okay, so let me clarify this. This is stated as a discussion and a possible action.
Yeah.
So we will have a discussion, and there is a possible action in the form of the motion. However, after the discussion, you may choose to amend that action by amending that motion that you're putting forward. Okay? But let's have discussion. So tell us quickly what this is about, what you've done, what you have in front of the board, so we can have a quick discussion on it.
So I was given the opportunity to be the ad hoc chair to bring recommendations for the community advisory group that is run by the health department. This was a very interesting project. This was a very difficult project. I reached out to everyone who was able to email me. I reach out to professors in CSUN, I reach out to professors in UCLA, and I also reach out to those who were recommended to me. I met with several of them. I met with Greg Caranti. I had a great conversation. We exchanged all the ideas. We learned about the main problem that we are facing with the health department, the uncertainty, the unclearance. You can't get reports and where we are going from here. And I also met with Dr. Jeffrey Nordova. He's a knowledgeable individual to speak with in various areas. After I spoke with both of them, I concluded my decision that Greg and myself would like to be on the community advisory group. It's going to be made of 7 neighborhood councils, and we are also going to have 13 other members on that community advisory group. After that meeting is done, on June 30th, there will be an agenda for nominations and moving forward for the scientific advisory, scientific oversight committee. The scientific oversight committee is actually very, very important. This is not for everyone. They need to be qualified. They need to show that they understand in gas, they understand in pollution, they understand in substance, in environmental, biochemistry, biology. That will be the second step for us. I feel that Greg and I, we had several conversations, whether meeting or on the phone. This is a good step to start and move forward. We need to start from a place.
So the 2 nominees that you're bringing forward recommendation to the board are yourself and Craig Caranti. Okay. And there's a discussion on the alternate that we're going to have to, let's quickly comment on the alternate situation.
So I spoke with Dr. Nodon. I felt that being him an alternate, we can proceed forward nominating him to the scientific oversight. He reached out to me yesterday at the last minute. He said, I would like rather go directly to the oversight, and I don't want to be the alternate.
Okay.
And that's where I'm going to have another alternate to replace Dr. Nodon.
So let's have that then on the table. Who's the recommended alternate?
So I reached out yesterday to Brandy Grace. I spoke with her on the phone, and I told her that I would like her to consider the post and the position for the alternate on the community advisory group.
Okay.
And she accepted the job.
Okay, so for the board, we have, yes, we'll have discussion. So just to summarize, we have 2 recommendations for community advisory groups, Mihran and Craig Galante from the community, and as an alternate, Randy. And just as Mihran mentioned, how many are they, 13?
Seven is
So
made from us,
seven
and
will be
there
selected.
will be 13 add on.
So the 7 will be selected from the neighborhood councils and submitted to the LA County. There's a public process that has already opened for individual members of the public or anyone to nominate themselves or nominate somebody else. And that form is online, and we're trying to spread it out to the community. It did not go out in this last e-blast, but will go out in the next e-blast and the next one until that deadline comes. So the 7 from the neighborhood councils will then review those public applications and select 13 for the total of 20 for the community advisory group, and then they'll go into the SOC. But what I want to emphasize is the neighborhood council's role ends at the nomination of the 2 and the alternate. Nothing's coming back to the neighborhood council for anything beyond that. So the SOC discussion will happen at LA County. They will have their own issues with selecting members based on the settlement agreement, as well as input from the community advisory group to construct that SOC. But the neighborhood council, this is the role that we have, so let me just open the floor. Hassan?
So, Maron, do you have a list of the other candidates you looked at and who they are, their
So
background?
I just want to tell you something. I did have a lot of meetings, and most of them, 9 out of 10, they want to stay private. And I need to honor that privacy. I can't cross that line. I did meet 2 from the CISA, and I had to call them, I had to go to their offices, and they enjoyed the conversation, but they don't want to be part of it, and they want to be aware of it.
Well, but, I mean, I don't have a problem telling you whom I suggested that you talk to at CSUN. There's a professor there, last name Machado, I can't remember his first name. And he's a toxicologist, he specializes in exposure to multiple toxins. I thought he would be a good addition to the group, but you know, I was not able to reach him. I talked to him on email a couple of times, and I gave his name to Ron.
Very difficult
That
to
was
reach
it,
them.
so.
No, I mean, with due respect, Maron, it feels that you didn't go out the bounds of this room to get your candidates.
No, I did. And I did have the individuals, they approached them.
Okay.
They did approach me, but please understand, they need to understand this is not about someone being on the board and complaining, it's about working. And most of them that I talked to, they were complaining. I had to leave my house and go and meet with them, either in Starbucks or coffee. They don't have that. You need to have someone who can be the voice, who is going to work. One lady, she said,
It is a reasonable request to understand the reach of your search for candidates.
right,
So give the board a bit of a clarity on how many individual stakeholders you talk to, how many people from outside the community and the professional community you talk to. We need to be able to know that you've done the due diligence. So, you know, just let's focus on that question.
you have nine environmental professors in CSUN, I talked with 7.
Okay.
I took 3 from UCLA,
Okay.
and I talked with 1 from UCLA.
Did you talk to members of the community?
I did, they reached out to me,
How many members of the community did you talk to?
7.
7 members. Okay. All right?
That answers my question.
I understand.
That's
You
my
need to
question.
ask that question. Yes,
Well-
Becky?
On the neighborhood council, we're transparent, and we can't, we need to know who these people are that we're interviewing.
Not really.
No.
We're asking, we asked him to bring nominations to the board. That's the transparency. You know, I'm
So
asking,
basically what's being said is he told us how many people he talked to, and now he's getting back to us with his recommendation.
right, and we can vote that recommendation up or down. Other questions or comments?
So, quick question. I know I'm not taking away from Randy by any means, but now that Hassan is on the board, would this be under your qualifications or your parameters, you know, to look into? Is this something that you would feel that you're interested in before we move on?
And qualified.
So, it sounds interesting, but frankly, I haven't been involved with this discussion, so I'm not sure exactly where are we going and what are we supposed to do, so.
Just remember, the role here is a community advisory group. We're not looking for health professionals to do the work on the community advisory group. We're looking for individuals that would represent the voice of the community and the concerns of the community and the aspirations of the community.
I was thinking that we were trying to look for, you know, community stakeholders that had qualifications that are out of our realm, at least out of my realm, to, you know, to be on that council.
I will tell my preference was to have nobody from the board on that group, but, and I stated that last time, but we gave him the job. He came to us with these 2 recommendations. We need to have a discussion and a vote.
And I'm good with all 3 of them, I just thought.
I understand.
Can I volunteer?
So really, the scientific, now there is the group advisory group, there are 7. They will add another 13. And there is another body which is the scientific side of it.
But
You have, yes,
the answer is yes.
yes, you can.
Because it's a two-step process. There's the neighborhood council nominations of 7 members, and then there are open 13 members. And that is a public nomination process. And the form is available already. It is online, but we will put it on the e-blast, so make sure you see the next e-blast and click on it and put your name, and you become a candidate for one of those 13 seats. So the answer is yes. Board? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I just want you to know, no offense, because like I didn't see it, I literally took a phone call last night and said yes. So I'm not offended at looking for alternatives for an alternate that wasn't seeking it. The only thing I can say outside of that is I do know one of the other members that has been appointed by another neighborhood council told me that some of the points that they want to press in the meetings were based on things they heard me say. So apparently I'm already having influence. But if somebody else really thinks that they'd be better at it, then even if I take it now, I'm always happy to look for somebody to replace me.
And again, remember there are 13 publicly open seats. Yes, Kate?
I think the 3 chosen are the best candidates. I think they'll be a great team together.
Someone else? Any other comments from the board?
I just have a question. Do we know if any of the other boards has any other action been taken by any of the other councils yet?
Yes.
Right.
Could you-
The only neighborhood council,
What action has been taken so far? Does anybody know any?
All I know is either Granada Hills South or, I think Granada Hills South has nominated 2 members already. One, sorry.
One, yes. And then
Northridge East
Northwood East,
and Northridge West.
Northwood West.
So
And
we're getting close.
Has Chatsworth done it?
we don't know yet.
Is your meeting coming up, or is it on the?
Just happened.
Just happened and wasn't on the agenda?
No, the night that the health department came, it was not well received.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other comment?
I think I saw the video.
All right, so can you make the motion then?
Motion. Possible action to accept the nomination of Greg Calianti and Miran Kalajan as the 2 representatives, and Brandy Grace as an alternate on the community advisory group of the resource disaster health study to be managed by the Lake County Department of Public Health.
Second motion.
Thank you. I have a motion, second by David Balin. Any public comment on that motion? No public comment. Board comments, discussion? Yes, David?
Just to reiterate, so we won't ever hear back from, once we vote, it's done. We will never hear back what goes on at the meeting, correct?
No, no.
We will be.
We can put on the agenda an update to the board on every meeting they have, and we'll ask either our nominees or anybody else on that board to come and give us an update, or the health department.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are those public meetings too?
I assume they are.
Yeah, I assume they are.
Craig, you want to say something?
Yeah, David, if I am nominated, I would not allow them not to divulge what we're talking about, what we're doing. I mean, the communities beyond Porter Ranch need to know. I mean, we wouldn't be advocates for the community if they shoved us off and didn't allow us to come in.
No, I was just making clear, I get it, because, it's, made a comment that, once we do this, we're out of it.
In terms of actions.
No, I
in
did,
terms of actions.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
We're good.
All right. Any other board comment? No further board comments. Please call the vote.
All right, Brandy,
Yes.
Hassan,
Yes.
David, Bailey,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Mira,
Yes.
Peggy,
Yes.
David Lasher,
Yes.
Lori?
Yes.
Assad? Abstain. Gabriel, yes, Isam?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. Thank you, folks. Let's move on to item number 13, the election of the second bank holder. Basically, the city now allows us to have someone else on the board to have a bank card in their name so that we have a backup for the payment on things in case the first bank card holder, Jason, is not available. So this is really an internal board business item election, so let's have some discussion, some thoughts on it, and think about who would be the best person to be able to make that payment, and I would open the floor. So, Becky?
I'd like to have Gabriel.
Okay. Can you explain why?
Because he's involved in a lot of that, and a lot of it falls on his shoulders, and he's scrambling around for money all the time, and I think he's responsible and honest,
Okay.
and would be a very good representative for our neighborhood council along with Jason.
Okay. Randy?
To be more specific, I think the position of secretary, which is Gabriel, is the most reasonable, partly because, I mean, you order cards, you order tags, it'd be nice not to have to. Yeah.
One less step.
Right?
Okay. Any other comments? Any thoughts?
I think, yeah, you guys are right on with like, so the support that this would give to me, because I have to do all the paperwork side and dealing with the portal and the BACs and all that kind of stuff, but, you know, getting the minutes, paying for the printing, paying for the food. There is another component, which is like when we do events, when we buy stuff for events, you know, so that's where it could be helpful, buying stuff, Walmart or wherever.
So what are you suggesting?
I think I was just making a comment, I wasn't suggesting anybody specific, but let me finish. The person has to do the funding training downtown before they can get the bank card. So I believe the only one who's done that training is David, right? I was mentioning that to Gabriel, but I originally was suggesting Gabriel. But can you get that funding training done? If you haven't done it, then I'd like to know that you'll take care of that, so we can get the bank card issued as soon as possible.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. I mean, people are saying that. First, let me ask you: Are you interested in taking on that job?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Okay, so it's an option. All right. I just want to make sure there's no fatal flaw in this discussion. Okay. Any other suggestions?
I would personally suggest either Gabriel, Miran is very involved with events, and him being able to go and buy stuff is a big help. Or David is always around, and David's done the funding training. So that means I could have him sign, and we could get the card issued right away. Whereas these other gentlemen will have to go downtown. The next class, I think, it might be a month or so before we actually get that second card. So
David,
that's just my opinion.
Most of the time, you're driving out on the road.
I'm everywhere. I'm in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I'm all over.
But I mean, in terms of having you go buy things and.
No, I personally, I think
worry about
that I will tend to agree with Jason that I think, holding the card should be a secretary position or even Ron, because he's all over the place and he's getting involved with everything as well. So it's not that big of a deal to get the training. They have training all the time. So I think it's simple.
Okay, go ahead, Frank.
Just out of fairness, I think if it isn't either the secretary or the vice president or the president or one of the executives that doesn't already have it, outreach chair is the one that's in charge of events. So as much as I love being on, outreach chair would be the next one if you're looking at events.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, it's either Gabriel or Laura. We need to look for the person who needs to buy things, and that's the deal here.
I agree.
Let's get a third card.
He's got cards for
I'm good with going to the funding training, I just haven't done it. So I agree with you that that would be,
hold-up issue.
Yeah, nobody expected this to come up, so I would have expected you guys to all go to funding. The only reason David and I went, because we're the signers and I was gonna be
It kind of
treasurer.
makes sense still to update David as a signer too.
It's
Just a second, Glenn.
something you have to think about.
Just to clarify, this doesn't go in effect till July 1st. There's nothing you can do until,
Right.
I mean, you can do the training if they offer it, but
There we go.
they will not be a major issue. The other thing is, just make sure whoever does get that second card, legally, if you do any transactions with the card, you'll be given access to the portal, and legally, you're responsible for uploading the receipts within the 10-day deadline. However, you can make arrangements to share that with the treasurer. That may be beside the point, but there is a responsibility of anything that you do, the use of the card, have the receipt, you're responsible for that receipt. Either uploading it or getting it to the treasurer to upload. The other card will, the other card will.
Yeah, that was my question. So actually, so they will have access to the portal. And so actually, that's good, because the bank holder can do the MERs, they can upload BACs, they can actually, I didn't know if they were gonna have access to the portal or
You
not.
won't have full access like you do.
Limited.
It's limited.
Oh, okay.
Like what we,
The upload.
Okay, so basically you need to always get an itemized receipt for any purchase you make and upload it. That's the duties. Just so people.
But I hope the city has from my perspective, from an administrative perspective, I would say that the roles of who does what in uploading needs to be very clearly delineated, so there's no confusion.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how this,
And I,
nobody
yeah.
explained it to
Yeah.
me, but I guess what Glenn is saying makes sense. There'll be limited access.
But it would be only up, I would suggest, even though he might do more, it would be only best to limit it to the receipts that he pays for on that card.
Right. No,
To
I,
supplement your submittals.
yeah,
That's all.
basically the expectation would be when I buy something, I'm gonna upload the receipt.
Right.
When the second card holder buys something, they're gonna upload the receipt. And probably their access is just gonna be limited to the credit card transaction section. Maybe they won't have access to the MERs, to the budget, to all the other sections that I have access to.
They won't have the payment request, they won't have access.
They won't issue checks. Right.
Question, still right now, we don't need a second signer and an alternate second signer at this point.
So the alternate second signer, I'll explain. That's different.
Yeah.
the next,
That's for
So-
BACs.
Okay.
Okay, let's,
So how do you wanna do this?
I want them to look at each other and pick one.
Nomination.
All right,
pull out your cards.
Just a second.
No, just, you typically get the food, correct?
Late, well, it all depends.
You know, sorry,
We did the printing and the food being read.
Figure out what's going on here, how we get involved in that.
And
So-
I will be purchasing a lot of the giveaways and other.
Right, so once it's approved by the board, so I understand
Yes.
the items, right? So once we have an item on the agenda, the prior month was going to purchase, I could go ahead then and use that credit card to purchase, correct?
If you have the approval, obviously, talking with the treasurer to make sure you're clear on who's
Can I
buying.
help with this? Can I help?
Go
Can I
ahead.
help, because I deal with all the transactions. So the expectation for the second card holder would be for you to help pick up the agendas, pay for them at FedEx or wherever, take care of the food, ordering the food, and work with outreach or whoever's doing an event, purchase those items, things like that, work with ordering cards and, you know, kind of all the running around and paying for stuff so that that helps support what I'm doing on the other side of the treasury side. I mean, it's really helping me out. I'm doing all this right now, so I'm really the one who's gonna benefit because it's a lot of running around and paying for stuff. But whether you're outreach or secretary, you'd be doing the secretary, you know, paying for what the secretary's doing with the, you know, the food and all that. So it's coordinated with the secretary, if it's you, or your court.
Well, it was not
I'm
the
sorry, I
point of
can't-
him to delegate to you what he just described. There is a general pool of activities, and we're gonna have to divide it afterwards. The point is, we need relief so that we have more access to someone who can pay for things, and there's a broad spectrum of what we pay for. There's supplies, there's printing, there's food, and there's paperwork that he does, and events is a big part of it. The printing and the food is actually a small part of it because the food gets paid here. It's not a big deal.
True.
The printing, whoever takes that on eventually can do that. Right now, I upload them. When I was with Andrew, I would get on the phone with him. He would enter the number on the upload and then gets paid for automatically and just somebody picks him up. Right now, when he goes to pick him up, he pays for him by the card. That's basically
It wasn't too bad. You
So,
know, I
that's
picked it up by
basically,
the mall,
that's
paid
basically
for
it.
it.
The
brought it.
biggest issue is in supplies. That's where supplies and
Events.
items for events.
Events is a lot of work, because when you go to,
Becky, you
like
have
when we
to.
did Ralph's and Walmart,
You have your hand up?
It's hard to hear when everybody's facing that way, I can't hear.
do you want to?
Well, I mean, she's talking to him, so she has to look that way. I don't know what to do.
I know a microphone maybe.
Sure. There you go. We'll pass it on. Okay, Miran has been dying to say something.
So, first of all,
This was supposed to be a
Jason,
10-minute item. Go
for
ahead.
two of you, you need someone that you call and you can call you back, correct? That's number one.
For what?
When you are for the second card holder.
No.
It doesn't matter?
No. Randy?
Thinking about it, I think, given my experience, outreach chair makes a lot of sense because like the valley preparedness, disaster preparedness thing, we didn't have anything, so I ran out to FedEx and printed a bunch, and I didn't look for reimbursement on that. And then we started running out of handout items, and I ran out and bought candy and a plastic bowl and stuff. I spent like $50 on my first event that I never put in the reimbursement because I didn't have all the stuff in place. But then things like that would come up at the holiday party. It was like, oh, we need one more round of table covers, so somebody had to go out and spend $12 on. So, yeah, kind of thinking about the random things that you suddenly end up picking up, it kind of makes sense for me.
Okay. Any other comment? All right. I'd like to nominate Lori to be the second card holder.
Second.
Any other nomination?
No, second.
All right. We have a second?
I second.
Can we all, it's not a vote. It's not
You're
stated as
making
a
a
vote.
motion, and we're gonna vote on the
Right.
motion.
Well, we're not making, we don't have it on the agenda as a motion. We're simply electing somebody. So, all in favor?
I have to do a BAC in a motion.
Oh.
Motion?
We do.
Yeah, this is what.
Election. Okay. All right.
I have,
So,
oh wait,
yes,
Glenn,
Glenn.
thank you for being here.
Yes, that's true.
Yes.
However, when you approve your administrative packet,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
included in there.
Oh,
yeah.
So you've made the decision of who it's going to be.
Yeah.
Oh, so
And then
maybe we
Good
can
point.
vote it on
Good
this.
point.
Yeah.
All
Okay,
right.
so we're gonna add it.
All right, so,
You
we're
look
good?
Glenn.
Any objections?
Any objections to it? All right, we'll get to it in the administrative package and we'll list our name. Thank you.
Laura,
Okay.
You're going in here.
This is taking longer than I expected. Election of alternate second signer. The point here is what?
The point is when, so the second signer is the person who, this is a board action form which we fill out for any motions that we approve, and there's two signatures. The treasurer and David are the two that are authorized to sign, but if, for example, I can't get a hold of David or I'm not around, then this alternate signer could sign either in my place or in David's place. So it makes it easier, makes life easier, kind of like the bank card thing. But it all only has to do with signing stuff.
The paperwork person, secretary.
Yes.
Third time's the charm.
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to make you do more work.
Or the president.
No, thank you. Okay, you're up for it?
I'm good for it.
You're good for it? Any other nomination? Alternate second signer? Okay, we will,
Who is it?
Gabriel.
Gabriel, okay.
We'll put Gabriel on the packet. Yes, Len?
Just a correction,
Yes.
Delete the second, it's actually, it's called alternate sign.
What do I have in it?
You have a second in there, it doesn't, it's just called alternate sign.
Put alternative too.
Alternate.
That's,
Yeah,
thanks
alternate.
AutoCorrect for that.
Alternate sign, sorry.
Alternate sign. Sounds good? Okay, we'll get to that administrative package. Thank you. That was fun.
Done.
Yeah, don't forget to do your funding training, Lord.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item
Oh,
15.
Gabriel too.
Yep.
Gabriel has to do it too for alternate sign.
Item 15, discussion of active city council files of interest to the PRNC.
Okay, so to save paper, I actually emailed you guys. Oh, you don't need it.
Testing, okay. I actually emailed the council files that I wanted to just kind of review. I'm basically going, okay, I'll start first just with a little bit of an overview on the council file system. Basically, I found 3 council files that we did CISs on. I know Esam said 4, but I could only find 3. One was on trees, one was on vegan, and the other one was on the naming of the park. Now, the council file list that Glenn put together has a lot of new ones. The ones on top, I'm sorry, I emailed this to you guys, but I'll just go briefly over what they are. There's one on electric vehicle charging stations, which I'm sure Assad would be able to enlighten us on. It looked very interesting on, they have rebates, and it looked like something that would be great for a presentation on, maybe from the city. There's one on rent relief, tax credits. There's another one on sober living and drug rehab facilities, which might impact Porter Ranch somewhat. Then there's a couple on motions that would be bond measures, so public safety facilities bond measures, fire facilities bond measures. So those the Public Safety Committee, Traffic and Safety might want to weigh in on. There's one on homelessness. There's a report back on the efficacy of existing cleanup efforts at homeless encampments, detailing key objectives and providing metrics of success and failure. This one sounds very interesting. Something the homeless committee might want to look at. I did email this to all the boards, so they have this list. So what I'd like, and then let me just finish. Another one on homelessness is feasibility for potential abridged home program sites. And then one that's sustainability, it's a council file to supporting a target to phase out single-use bottled water sales at municipal facilities by 2028. So there's, and I thank Glenn for putting this list together, it's very good. These are a lot of the new council files that are not expired or passed already, so these are ones that we can definitely weigh in on. So I encourage you guys to take a look at them and let me know. And if we could keep this on the agenda for next meeting, and then, if you guys want to do council files, I'm happy to help you with them, or, but I wanted to, let you guys know the information. Okay. Let me put this in context a little bit, please. Here, I got a mic here. Can you hear me all right? Okay. This is not intended to be run like this. The intent of this is to provide the stakeholders access and a summary of all the city council files that are important to the community, and we want to be that vehicle to bring it to you. So first of all, it was brought up at the retreat that the frustration about the city council files is that meetings happen, things happen, and unless you're looking at it closely, you'll miss it. So I said, okay, let's bring it to the council as a recurring item that we bring on the agenda every month to alert the community as well as the board members of all the pending city council files. So Glenn's list is a great start. We don't need to replicate that effort. We're gonna tap into your resources and your work and try to bring that out to the community, but it's critical that we include it as an attachment to the agenda moving forward from here. And we will have that item on the agenda. We'll open it for public comment and board comments, and out of that discussion, if there is a desire to file a CIS on that, then we will make that decision there to bring forward that CIS at the next meeting. So that's how the process is going to go, and I'd like to see if that's going to be useful to the community, what kind of feedback we get on that. Yes, Dave?
I just also want to note that at the retreat, we did speak about it. So thank you very much for forwarding your information to the board as well.
Any other thoughts on that, comments on this? So the process that we're laying out is good? Okay. Are you going to be the one getting it from Glenn and sending it to me for the agenda? Yeah. So that'll be your role?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right, guys.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Do a 15 seconds.
20.
So for bank, you hopefully right before the meeting, sometimes right after, it's posted on the webpage for alliances. And that link is at the top of the page you have there.
Right.
So hope all goes well. By tomorrow night, there'll be an updated list. Secondly, sometimes when I'm reviewing all the council files, I see things that are specific to individual communities. So sometimes I see Chatsworth, and I, sometimes give folks
a heads up.
Left, yes. So I'm happy to do that for Porter Ranch. If I see a Porter Ranch specific neighbor council, doesn't happen quite as often because you're pretty planned and community. But I can forward something like that. Those would not be on the list because the list is things that are of general interest, perhaps to all Valley Neighbor Council. But if I happen to see something, I know Jason's the point person, we have to forward.
Okay. Okay. All right. Item 16, Lord.
Discussion and possible action to approve the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council's participation in the annual National Night Out event for the LAPD Devonshire Division to be held on Tuesday, August 6th at the Northwood Recreation Center. The PRNC received an email invitation to participate in the LAPD Devonshire Division's annual event called National Night Out. The invitation email to participate was sent to all board members on May 28th by the representative of Mickey Roy, who I believe is here tonight. This community building event promotes police community partnerships and awareness. The event will be held at the Northwoods Recreational Center from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, August 6th. Setup would be starting at 4:30. They will provide tables and chairs as well as a canopy for us, so we won't be sitting in the heat. This is a great outreach event for PRNC, and we should participate in it and show our support as we participated in last year.
So, again, I mean, in my mind, committees do the work. So if you, I'm not asking about you.
Our committee will be there.
Your committee is going to.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Okay, any discussion on this from the board before we make a motion?
Can you ask Mickey to give us just 1 minute statement about the event?
She's been waiting.
She's been here all night waiting.
Yeah.
She just wants us to look.
I'm just
You
here
know,
to-
everybody's speaking on. Are
Yeah,
you
can
waiting?
you say something
No,
about it?
I'm here, if there are any questions or anything, I'm just
Thank you.
here. So I
Okay.
don't know.
Any question?
Thank you.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Can you elaborate on the night out?
We have the microphone here.
I think you're short of time, so that's fine.
Don't worry about me.
Nobody cares about my thing. Go ahead.
It is a community building event, but to promote partnership between the community and Devonshire Division. We will have various Devonshire volunteer groups have, have their booths. And we have community partners also attending the event. It is from 6 to 8 sundown. And around sundown, then the attention does shift to this, the main screen, because there will be a movie provided by CV12. We do not know what the movie is at this point. As soon as we know and as soon as the flyer comes out, we will be sending it to the neighborhood council so you can share that with the community.
Thanks, Mickey.
Thank you, Mickey.
Yes.
Oh, just a quick question. So it's free and open to the public, and
Yes.
it's free for us to
Yes,
have?
everything's free.
Last year's event was very successful. We had a booth there, I believe. We were there. It's a great place to meet all the LAP officers as well as all the CERT and other organizations. It was great, and I'm 100% for it.
David?
It's a long-standing national event, it's been around for, if not decades, certainly many years, and they do different things in different communities, like walk around. I wish they did more of that than just go to the park, but definitely sport, it's a good activity and opportunity for people to understand some
All right.
safety understandings of the community.
Randy?
And as part of the outreach, I mean, I've done this at my previous neighborhood council, I was in charge of doing this, so it's a great event, and I'm really glad it worked.
Any other comments, questions from the board? Good, any
Great
thoughts?
event.
All right.
One question. So are we just physically there to interact with folks? Or are we giving stuff away? And is there any financial decisions here?
We have one purpose in life, outreach. So every event we do, it is to bring in people.
So you have to have some materials to do
Yes.
outreach, and it is prepared and paid for or doing it.
We'll get there.
We're discussing
Thank you.
Discuss the further.
All right, let me have a motion. Can I have a motion?
Motion to attend and participate in Temperature Division's National Night Out.
Randy
On
seconded.
August 6th.
Okay.
And two of us seconded.
Can I have a,
Thank you.
Becky seconded. Public comment? Board comment?
Do it.
Call the roll, please.
All right, Brandy,
Yes.
Hassan,
Yes.
David Bailey,
Absolutely.
Jason,
Yes.
Miran,
Yes.
Becky,
Yes.
David Asher,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Assad,
Yes.
Gabriel, yes, Isam,
Yes.
motion passes.
Item 17, Jason and Mehran.
Which motion is
Yours. 17.
The debate.
this? Okay. So, motion for PRNC to co-sponsor with CD12 and Rex and Parks the ribbon cutting ceremony for the new playground.
Item 17.
17.
Oh,
The debate.
you messed me up.
Deegan.
David. David Scott. Okay, this is the debate, okay. So motion for PRNC and the League of Women Voters to host the candidate debate for the August 13th, 2019 runoff election for CD12 with the date, time, and location to be determined. Later time, okay. So we've worked on securing this school is available.
So July 13th.
What is it, July?
July 13th, right?
I think it was July 12th.
Thank you guys. Keep it
12
to
or
12.
14, yeah.
July 12th, but the motion doesn't include that. But basically, we did the candidate forum at Castle Bay, and we'd like to do it here. Doing it here has a lot of advantages. We don't have to get the permit, which was, a long process getting the permit for the LAUSD. We still have to do, get approval with the city clerk, but getting the permit from LAUSD, we won't require that for this school. And also, we don't have to pay for the room either, so it saves us a little bit of money. Essentially, we can do it the same way we did it last time. We can also, they are a 501c3. If we want to do it differently, we won't be like the co-sponsor of the event like we were before, where our name is kind of front and center. They could come and ask for an NPG from us, and we would have to approve the funding, and then they would provide the food. So that was one thing that Isam, I had a conversation with him about. But as far as I can see, the last event we did was a great success, and we allow, our meetings are all open to the public. They can take video, and so I don't see any issues. Other forums were out there where they were restricting video. That was at the Temple of Mount Shalom, and at the Women's Club, from what I understand, they were restricting video. So there was an issue with the complaint that came in.
Okay, so we have a lot of board members who want to speak about this, so.
Yes. So I'm in favor of doing this, but I'm not in favor of partnering with the League of Women. I feel they violated the process by not allowing any of the write-in
What, I'm sorry,
candidates.
don't you like that?
You said it totally.
They didn't let the write-in candidates be in the panel to be asked questions, while the write-in candidates are already on the ballot.
Who did?
League of Women.
So the League of Women Voters only allowed candidates who were on the ballot. Yes, that's
So
their.
that's how typical is it, it's under the city of Los Angeles violation board.
Can you hold on for a second? The mic system needs to work. Can you please use the mic? What did you want to say? Can you repeat it?
Basically, what Mariah and I are both in agreement on is typically that's how it's done. Even in the national debates and even in all of the debates that are happening, you typically have to be on the ballot before they usually will let you host and be a part of in the polling. Yeah, exactly, to be a part of the debate. So it's not unheard of.
And if I can.
Just a second.
Okay, sure.
Thank you. So if the League of Women Voters does it by themselves, they're gonna have to get a permit. They need us so that they get it for free.
So we would, they would come to us for the funding for the food, and this would be, and that would be our role, is to fund the food, and then we would provide the venue for them, because they don't do that. The League of Women Voters is helpful for us because they deal with the candidates, and they bring in the moderator, so they're working on getting Adrian Albert from ABC 7 as the moderator. That's the one that moderated the event. So
The other item
that's
I
the
have,
benefit of, so like if we don't use League of Women Voters, then we have to find the moderator, and we have to interact with the candidates, because part of what they do is they make sure that they follow certain rules in terms of campaigning. They don't want them campaigning. You know, they're experienced in doing this, which we are not.
Go ahead.
and then the other item was, the questions that we submitted, well, specifically my 3 questions were filtered out by the moderator, and I felt it was good for the community to be asked. However, the lack of knowledge of the moderator filtered it out. So I feel they are not even aware of what's going on in CD12 to filter out and allow questions in or out.
Okay.
We'd better off on our own.
If I may make a comment as a board member as well. I personally have a concern. I have had conversation with the city attorney about the process. She's not a fan of us being visible in a city election of this sort, but she's not going to decide. That's her perspective, and I respect that. The idea is that if this is a League of Women Voters event, we can support it, but it is not advisable for us to be co-hosting or co-sponsoring and be the visible partner in this. If it's done where we provide financial support to make it possible for the community to have this event, that's great, but her preference and my personal preference is that we provide that support in the background, not in the limelight. I'm not a fan of that, and it can cause us some issues that she was concerned about, and I agree with.
Would that include the venue?
Sure, we can help bring the venue, we can help bring the food, and we can say, brought to you with support by the Port Orange Neighborhood Council as part of our satisfying that need, but not have our logo on the front table in the camera.
So, a couple things. One is that we're not the only neighborhood council that's doing or considering doing this, and it was considered a big success from an outreach perspective last time. The fact is other neighborhood councils are now looking to what we did to replicate it. So knowing that we can do town halls and things like that, there's precedent for it. I understand where there's always an ickiness factor of concern that if we did it wrong, but we didn't. And I think that if we do what we did before, we're good. even if they don't prefer it, even if the attorney doesn't prefer it. That's one point. So I'm in favor of us actually doing it with the Zoom as opposed to giving them money to do it without us having a prominent slot, because this is a good outreach thing. On that note, this should prevent it from going forward exactly, but I'm curious why this is not going through outreach. The first one went through outreach, and Jason took it over more because of the time, for obvious reasons. I couldn't be directly involved, but it was still through outreach. This one seems to have been done already in the background, and it hasn't gone to the outreach committee. It's not involving our outreach chair, it's involving two others, and I'm just curious why.
Well, here's why. Whoever brings a motion to me, I put it on the agenda. What should have happened is, and this is something that we have a problem with this on this board. We don't have respect for the committee's jobs. If someone has an idea for something that falls under education, they should bring it to Mihran and let him proceed with it on his committee. If there's something that is related to outreach, they should bring it to Lori and then step back and let the committee take care of it. That's why, but the motion was brought to me and I put it on the agenda.
Yeah, and I'm not saying against you.
And I'm not defending myself, I'm just telling you, this is how it happened.
I think the question is directed to me. Can I respond?
Sure.
Because it was basically my motion and then Ron signed on, but
It's basically a time-sensitive thing, you know, because the election just finished, and there's a very short window to do this, but I'm happy to refer it back to outreach committee. If you want to hold a meeting next week, but there's a very short timeline. Like, I'm happy to refer it back to your committee. I don't have a problem with that, but I just want to get the ball rolling. So it's not in any way that I don't want to, but there is overlap in committees. This could be considered, you know, education too, you know, but it's not about that. It's about the time-sensitive nature of it. The debate, the runoff results just came out, and there's a very short window, and we can't even, we have to still approve funding, so this is going to have to come back to the board next month anyway. So there's a period of time that it can go back to outreach. If you guys want to table it or whatever you want to do is fine, but we have, if I'm going to start working with the League of Women Voters and getting, the intent of this is to allow this to get going. So I can work with the League of Women Voters. We worked on the venue. We have the venue. So if you guys approve this, then I can go ahead and secure the venue, secure the moderator. You know, so let me know what you guys think. I'm open to whatever. I just want to get the ball rolling.
Can I ask you, in what capacity you're the one working with the League of Women Voters on this matter?
I've reached out to get information to find out if they will help us, and they say yes.
Help us as a PRNC.
Yeah, well, however we decide to vote, however we decide to do it. If we don't want to do anything, then there's nothing. If we want them to help us, then they will help us.
That's not what I'm talking about.
What are you talking
What
about?
I'm talking about, you said, if you guys wanted to do it, let me know and I'll work with the League of Women Voters. And I'm asking you, in what capacity are you taking on that role? This is an outreach role.
Then outreach can work with them.
Outreach
Then I can pass it to outreach, that's fine too.
Okay.
Whatever works.
I was just curious because I expected it to say Jason and Lori, and then it's Jason and Leon. If you're looking at
It's-
this Cajun thing, then that
It's
makes
only
sense.
because who brings the motion to the agenda.
Yeah,
Right.
so I'm asking.
If you want to be on the motion, that's fine. I don't mind. Like, it's not to, I mean,
Leave it as for now, you know, this year.
do you want to take it up in committee, or do you want to vote on it?
I think we should vote on this now, get this moving.
And then I can pass the buck, and then if you want to work with the League of Women Voters, it's a board decision, you know, we have to figure it out. I just put the motion forth to figure it out on the board level.
Let me ask you a question for the motion authors. When you say at a later time, can we be more specific in this motion to say, is it at the next board meeting, or what are you talking about?
For what, the venue, or for?
Date, time, location.
For the motion.
A date, time, and location to be determined at a later time.
What's your question? What is that later time?
Which we already did.
So we can, we have, are you talking about the event? When the event's gonna occur?
No. You're saying in here, with a date, time, and location to be determined at a later time.
Yeah, that, at a later time part could be removed.
So that's to be determined by the League of Women Voters. So what happens? Okay, so help me understand. What are we talking about?
We already have a location and the date, right?
It's not on the motion. So I'm asking.
Because, okay, so we put you understand there's a period of time that transpires between when we submit a motion and when we have our meeting.
So do we have a meeting date?
We checked on dates, on potential dates, and we do have a date that will work of July 12th. It's a Friday. So we could amend the motion.
That's 2 days after our board meeting.
It's
when are you
before,
going to vote
hold on.
funding on it?
Wait. Let me look at the calendar.
He's right. It's after.
This is the challenge because we would normally be voting on the funding now. And we're on a very short timeline, but we have we can't do any, it's because of the fiscal year changing over that's making it difficult. You understand?
So do you want to do a special? Yeah, let's do a special. Before, because if you're gonna have.
No.
Let's just do
Okay.
it now.
Hold on. We can't do it now because the funds are going to be expended in July in our next fiscal year. So that's why I left the funding component off of it because we couldn't approve funding. Jasmine understands it if you want to explain it. But the 12th, yeah, well, okay, so basically here, July 10th would be our board meeting, right? So it would be short notice, but if we approve July 10th, the funding on this, and I don't like doing it that way because what if the board says no to the funding? Then we have no food, right? But if we meet on the 10th and the event is on the 12th, then on the 10th, we
Can't
can,
happen, Jason, because they need.
if we do an MPG, it can't happen.
They need to put a poster out. We need to order things. And we can't do any of that.
We're stuck in a bind because of the city clerk, the way the rules are. July 1st would be the earliest that we could, if we call a special meeting July 1st, then we could get the ball rolling. But there's no way to do funding on this right now. We're stuck between a rock and a hard place, essentially.
All right, just a second, yes.
Yeah. So, okay, 2 items. The first one is, the elections is August 13th. You don't need to really rush everybody into a July 12th meeting. That's
We
one.
do. The vote by mail goes out the day after this debate.
Fine.
That's the reason why. The reason why is the ballots are coming in the mail, so people will start voting, right? Like when do the
July 15th.
July 15th, people will receive their ballots, so they'll start voting.
Second item, and the second item is, we got all an email from other neighborhood councils to join
Right.
forces.
Right.
I'd rather we join forces with other neighborhood councils than with the League of Women.
Okay, so you have to explain to me how we're gonna do this, because it creates another layer, and I've
That's
looked.
the outreach, it's
I've-
not my responsibility.
No, well, you're, okay, because I've looked into what needs to be done. What you have to understand is, now we're dependent upon another neighborhood council, so you're adding more layers. Already right now, it's somewhat complicated. But by adding another neighborhood council, you're adding double layers, because now they have to approve, and then, I have a question for Jasmine. If we, let's say, because we did get an email from Northridge West, and I replied back to them, and basically, if we did something with Northridge West, just as an example, it would be not in one of our districts, either theirs or ours. So is that okay, or how would that work if we wanted to do something jointly with another neighborhood council?
Did you tell Gabriel that's replied to them?
We could all go through Gabriel. How could you reply back?
Okay, no, I didn't. Okay, I'm sorry.
Any other comments?
Can I ask you a question? I want to.
Yeah, so if you're going to go in on it together, if you share about it, it would be ideal to have something in the middle, but it could be in either.
Either.
Either. But if you
So that's
have
no
a
issue.
shared boundary with any type of shared asset, that's ideal.
Maybe. Larry, you want to say something?
Yes. So, I wish I had known ahead of time because I could have advised a couple things. So, you are not restricted to approving, waiting until July 1st to approve money for next fiscal year. If you had agendized it for money and said specifically on your agenda item to be spent or to be approved out of fiscal year 2019-20 budget, then you could have approved that tonight, assuming, of course, that you approve your administrative packet first, or at least tonight, so that that's submitted in the city clerk, and then you'd have that done. Having said that, you could, if you wanted to, call a special meeting between now and July 10th, when your regular meeting is going to be held, if you wanted to expedite the funding of that. And you can do that during June, but you have to be very careful about how you agendize that wording, make it clear that it's for next fiscal
Okay,
year.
I appreciate that. I'll work with the city clerk on specific language to make that work. I appreciate it. Any other comment?
I think we should do this.
Okay, so, anybody feels we need to change the motion? No. Read your motion. You want to make the motion?
Are you gonna amend the date?
Yeah.
Well, can I just ask, Jay Hector, and is it going through outreach or education?
Right now it's education, for the interest of time.
Okay. Then are you,
If the committee's.
you're on education?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. If the committee, okay.
It's fine, education's fine, that's what we're doing, educating the community.
Right.
Not a problem, you'll have to work with outreach.
I'm not gonna have an education meeting.
I understand.
It's a short timeline, and
I
does
understand.
outreach wanna have a meeting? An outreach meeting, do you plan on having an outreach meeting?
Not necessarily specifically for this, no, let's go ahead and, move forward with this, as is.
Okay. Can I have a motion?
Okay. Motion for PRNC of the League of Women Voters to host a candidate debate for the August 13th, 2019 runoff election for CD12 with the date, time, and location to be determined, period.
Before you do the second, can I ask you to please, we can't say what the League of Women Voters is going to do, so it's for the motion for the PRNC to join the League of Women Voters.
Okay, you want me to make the motion?
Please.
Okay. Okay, I see. Okay. Motion for PRNC, you want to join.
In hosting.
To co-sponsor?
Let's leave it join and see
They
where it
prefer
ends
throwing
up
it
in
out there.
funding.
Yeah, we tried that
This is
last time,
fine,
and we
okay.
didn't like co-sponsors, okay. Motion for PRNC to join the League of Women Voters in hosting a candidate debate for the August 13th, 2019 runoff election for CD12 with a date, time, and location to be determined.
If that was determined, it was July
Can we say
12th.
it could be determined by the League of Women Voters? I assume that they're making the decision.
Yeah, it's not like
Is that correct?
See, we're working together on,
So they're open to discussing the date, is that what you're saying?
the date is to be determined by the neighborhood council.
It is, okay. Then can we say that? To be determined, and we leave it open, we're not sure who's determining it, so can we be specific? By the neighborhood council, that's fine, I just want to know who's making that determination.
Fort Ranch Neighborhood Council.
Aren't you talking about having it on July 12th?
Yeah.
Not confirmed.
Correct.
It's not confirmed.
We have looked into the room and it's available July 12th and.
But we still have to coordinate with the other group.
Did you talk to?
We haven't confirmed with the moderator yet on the date, but we are targeting July 12th. It's not set in stone.
Okay. All I'm asking for the time and location to be determined by the PRNC. area table. Is that possible?
But that's, I mean, yeah,
Okay. You read the motion, she wrote it, can I have a second?
Second.
Are we putting in?
Ron seconded. No, we're not. You didn't,
Yeah, that's fine.
you got the motion that you read? Ron seconded. Public comment? No public comment. Board comment? Call the vote.
Randy,
Yes.
Hassan,
Abstain.
David Bailey,
Abstain.
Jason Hector,
Yes.
Miran,
Yes.
Becky,
Yes.
David Lasher,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Assad,
No.
Gabriel, yes, Isam,
No.
motion passes.
All right. Item 18.
Who else abstained?
Jason.
Who else abstained? I'm sorry.
Oh, abstains were David Balin and.
It's not a funding motion. You don't need to have a phone for it.
You mind if it becomes an event?
He has it. I understand.
Can you just let me do what I have to do?
Item 18.
I understand. Motion to allocate up to $650 for video production of 2018 and 2019 PRNC community improvement projects. So,
Second the motion.
okay, so.
Okay. Public comment?
How long are the videos planned, approximately?
Up to 5 minutes, like 3 to 5 minutes. What we're targeting. You want me to give you a little information?
No, she asked the question. We'll get to the board discussion. I'm just opening for the public to ask,
All right.
make a comment or ask a question. All right. Board comments, questions, go ahead. Hassan.
I think it's a great idea because this way it will enhance some of the positive work that the PRNC is doing, and it shows some of the improvements and the enhancements we're doing within the community. So I will be in total favor for this.
Okay, Brandon?
Can you break down a little bit what this funding is for? Or you-
Yeah, so originally I put 2018 because I was thinking of doing something for the previous tree project, but now that Wendy has gone ahead and done the article, I'm more looking at doing the future tree project that we're doing in Limekiln Canyon, all the dead tree removals there, and Wilbur Tampa Park. So I was quoted $300 for a video. Like 3 by Mark Ovitar, I think is his name. He did the video for the Limekiln Canyon cleanup. He was the gentleman. But this motion is not specific to any one individual's. You know, obviously we need to be publicizing what we're doing so we can be recognized for our hard work and people can understand what the neighborhood council is doing in our community. We do a lot of work. We're only volunteers, and nobody's going to know what we're doing if it's not out there in the public domain.
That's exactly why we have a camera. How come somebody won't take the camera and do it?
So did you watch the video that they did for the Limekiln Canyon cleanup?
That's fine.
So basically, he's getting different. It's not a still footage where but he's going to go through and film all the different components and do interviews and make it a professional style video. This is just a still filming, and I think it's important to do things that look professional, and that's why I feel like we should be spending some money on doing good video.
Is that going to be done by committee, or is it, how are we going to do it? Take suggestion? I think the Pine Tree thing is very important. It's something that was worked on for many years and nothing happened until you took it over. And I think it's a story about the bark beetles and the deterioration of pine trees.
Yeah, so basically when we got the funding approved, when the project starts, if you guys authorize this expenditure, then he can come out and start filming. And then
Under
he'll,
whose direction though? I mean, usually we do things by committee. Are you going to be the one that works with them, or? Because there's a lot of
whoever
things-
wants to show up and participate, it's a board thing. Like, when we do this tree project, all you guys are gonna know about it, and you're They're all welcome to come out, he'll interview you, you can direct him, you know, we want
So are you
participation.
gonna be in charge of it?
Anybody
But
can
Becky,
No, but
Becky, I know what you're asking.
everybody.
He is the chair of the beautification committee. So the answer to your question is yes, it is this beautification committee
Okay.
that's leading
I
the charge
put
on
the
the safe
motion
route.
in, and I'm happy to do it, but if you want to be part of it, then.
No, I
She's
don't,
just
I
asking a
don't.
question.
I maybe put beautification committee after your name. So that we know that that's the committee that's taking it on. That was what I was getting at.
This is just his motion. The motion comes from board members.
I understand, but I just want to know which committee was gonna oversee it. Now I know.
I'm curious, is it really worth for us spending $650 on a video?
I think it's gonna be half that cost, because I was doing that because I was figuring 2 videos. The cost of the video I'm projecting to be if we're doing one video for one project, then it would be, he quoted me $300.
I mean, we put events together, we don't do videos, we have photos, we have stories on them, and we announce them. I think we're going overboard here with money that we can put for better use. Yes, David.
I'm not gonna counter your suggestion, but I think one thing we are missing is that CSUN is a prominent television video production school, given it's in LA, but beyond that, it's a very well-known television video production. There are people there that want projects, and want to do projects, and need to do projects for grades. Pierce College, same way, not to replace your proposal, but I think we should at least consider we can get them for free by, junior, senior college student who's trying to get a project done. And they're willing to come out with equipment and everything else.
I think it's a great idea.
I have some contacts there, I'm
We
happy
need
to help
that.
you with that.
We need these things in place, like yesterday. That's the problem that I face, because this project is literally gonna potentially take place in the next week or 2. So, if these are good ideas, but we need something that we can do. So right now, our options are, we have Wendy, okay, that would be another option. We could hire Wendy, and she could take photos and write an article, that would be an option. But this budget would be able to facilitate that, that would be possible.
Okay, last 2 comments, then I'm gonna call a vote. Go ahead.
Okay. I want to make 2 points that I think is really important. We need to be more tangible, and we need to be more visible in it. I personally think that this film is an excellent way to promote the positive thing. Now, if you're going to do a movie showing trash, that's another thing. This is a positive thing that this neighborhood council has done, and I think that we need to get the word out. I mean, it's not just the neighborhood council here, it's been a city problem with the trees, and we took it on, and we won. And I think it's a story that needs to be told.
Okay,
The
and Ron?
power of neighborhood councils.
Jason, if you like, I can contact the C7 Students Production Division tomorrow morning.
But it's too many.
Let him make his comment,
Oh,
please.
sorry.
Those are the students, they can get credit, and they will do the job probably better than anyone else. I can call them tomorrow morning at 8:30.
So can I just make one last comment? The intent is to have a professional style video done with this funding, but, okay, the intent with this motion is to have a professional style video done for this important project that we're spending thousands of dollars on. It's not for every single event.
Okay, David?
And-
Really quick.
Sorry, we gotta move on. David?
Thank you. Really quick, so I say Jason is always very meticulous on spending the money. What we spent here at the big 5K run, we spent less than $300. So we had earmarked $1,000 for that. So Jason, you always do everything perfect, so you have my vote.
All right,
And I know you'll say this.
I'm gonna call the vote. I'm sorry, call the vote.
All right, Brandy,
Yes.
Hassan,
Yes.
David Bailey,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Miran,
Yes.
Becky,
Yes.
David Lasher,
As a non-binding suggestion, we talk CSUN, yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Assad,
Yes.
Gabriel, abstain. Isan,
No.
motion passes.
All right. Item 19. We have a motion. Can you read the motion, please?
You keep
This is the written side now.
All right. So we're on the the ribbon cutting, okay. Motion for PRNC to co-sponsor with CD12 and Rex and Parks the ribbon cutting ceremony for the new playground in Wilbur Tampa Parks with a budget up to $550 for food and drinks.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Public comment? Board comment?
Do we have a date?
No, they don't have a date, but I just spoke to Matt Valencia. and-
Okay. No board comments, call the vote?
All right, Brandy.
Yes.
Hassan?
Yes.
David Bailey?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Miran?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
David Lasher?
Yes.
Lori?
Yes.
Assad? Yes. Gabriel, yes. Isam?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 20. Jason?
All right, so motion to approve, to authorize.
Two, sorry. That's the
To
type.
complete.
What?
It's authorized the PRNC two.
Okay, motion to authorize, well, shouldn't it be me? Instead of, or no? It's on the treasurer, it's in the packet.
But we're approving.
Okay, so motion to authorize the PRNC to complete, approve, and submit the administrative packet for the fiscal year 2019-2020 per the city clerk's requirements.
The package is in the package here.
Yes, and I've added the approved signers
I'll second it.
on there.
Go ahead. Motion and a second, any public comment? Board comments? Call the vote?
All right, Brandy.
Yes.
Hassan?
Yes.
David Bailey?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Miran?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
David Lasher?
Yes.
Lori?
Yes.
Assad? Yes. Gabriel, yes. Isam?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 21. Gabriel?
Make a motion to approve $50, up to $50 to change the locks and get new keys for our mailbox number 7337 in Port Ranch.
Second the motion.
There's a motion and a second, public comment? Board comment?
Can we pay by credit card for that?
Yes.
Call the vote, I'm sorry, David Lasher. Is it about this? No, no, okay.
Go forward.
Call the vote?
All right, Brandy.
She went to it.
Hassan?
Yes.
David Bailey?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Miran?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
David Lasher?
Yes.
Lori?
Yes.
Assad? Yes. Gabriel, yes. Isam?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Yes.
Before you adjourn, we're part of the council of the city of LA, we're part of the county of Los Angeles. We should adjourn in honor of Deputy Joseph Serrano, who died about an hour ago. Deputy shot. Nice thought, so we adjourn in his memory and his first service.
Officer?
Officer Deputy Joseph Serrano.
Joseph
Solano, yes, Solano.
Solano. Do you have the spelling?
No, but I'll look it up.
S-O-L-A-N-O.
Solar.
Died in the last couple hours.
Oh, gosh.
All right. Thank you all without objection.